Chapter 662, Su Pingping. Such unwarranted scorn made Meng Hao frown. If he revealed his cultivation base, the situation would resolve instantly. However, striking it rich had been difficult, and he could solve this with demon hearts instead. As the woman turned to leave, Meng Hao slapped his bag of holding. 1,500 low-grade demon hearts piled up with a loud clatter in the pavilion's center, forming a small mountain. Glittering light poured out. The chosen about to ascend to the second floor turned back, their faces filling with shock, their eyes blazing with greed. Xianxia looked back at the demon hearts. Despite her status and cultivation, she was shaken. She knew their value and looked toward Meng Hao. Next to her, the young man gaped and breathed heavily. Despite his rank as junior patriarch, he rarely witnessed such a sight. The female disciple was the last to realize what happened. When everyone turned to look, she did as well. The mountain of demon hearts struck her dumb. Roaring filled her head. How could these two plainly dressed, almost rustic cultivators possibly have so many demon hearts? Senior, I stammered the woman. Is that enough? Asked Meng Hao coolly. Now bring out your best product. He waved his right hand. Rumble. A second mountain appeared. A third materialized. 3 mountains of demon hearts now lay on the pavilion floor, totaling 5,000. Resplendent light filled the space. Intense spiritual energy made it seem like a celestial paradise. The woman's mind reeled. She could barely stand. She couldn't believe the person she'd ridiculed was so wealthy. The chosen on the stairs panted, their wide eyes fixed on the demon hearts. They dearly wanted to seize them. Xianxia stared in shock. A burning fervor kindled within her as she looked at Meng Hao. The young man beside her drew a deep breath, unable to look away. The entire pavilion was filled with complete silence. A peal of laughter came from the second floor. A young woman walked out in revealing clothing, innately seductive. A fragrant aroma preceded her, and her forehead bore a 5-colored crystalline pattern. Her smile was charming, and she emanated an aura of mature attractiveness. She walked slowly down the stairs, ignoring the chosen as she passed. They bowed and clasped their hands to her. The junior leader lowered his head respectfully at her appearance. Earlier today, I heard the magpies calling, so I knew an honored guest would come. I've been resting in anticipation. Now you are here. I'm Su Pingping. Greetings, fellow Taoist. Meng Hao glanced at Su Pingping and saw a late nascent soul cultivation base. She hid it well, yet it was clearly visible to him. His glance caused her heart to quiver. His gaze seemed to pierce through every defense, laying bare her secrets. She grew nervous, though her expression didn't change. Her demeanor remained one of maturity and charm. Fellow Taoist, please come up to the second floor, she said with a smile. The Cloudburst Pavilion has everything you need. Both her words and manner were deeply respectful toward Meng Hao. He nodded and climbed the stairs. Wei Li followed, her heart pounding. Everything she'd witnessed today had opened a new world to her. She was both nervous and excited as she trailed after Meng Hao. As she was about to ascend, she hesitated and quietly said to Meng Hao, Senior, the demon hearts. No one in Seahold would dare to take my demon hearts, Meng Hao said slowly, continuing up. His words echoed through the pavilion and hearts trembled. Such wording was incredibly domineering. Su Pingping's eyes glittered. His penetrating glance made her grow more cautious. The chosen on the stairs, whether from the flying immortal sect or others, instinctively backed away. When he neared Xianxia, she looked up curiously. He ignored her and ascended to the second floor. Su Pingping followed. As she passed the chosen, she stopped and looked back at the 2 nascent soul cultivators and the other flying immortal sect disciples responsible for receiving guests. The 2 of you screw off, she said coolly. Go back to the flying immortal sect immediately. The 2 old nascent soul cultivators trembled as they acknowledged. The other 4 of you can also screw off. Go to the flying immortal dungeon, where you will be punished for half of a 60-year cycle. The disciples' faces went deathly pale. They trembled with terror. And as for you, she said, looking at the dazed female disciple, if I get in any trouble from the sect because of you, you pathetic dog-eyed slut, you couldn't pay me back if you had 10 lives. You're expelled from the flying immortal sect. Get out of here. The farther you screw off, the better. She turned and went to the second floor. When she passed Xianxia, she nodded and smiled. The Cloudburst Pavilion had 2 floors. The second was roughly the same size as the main hall, grand and imposing, with an incense burner in the center. It was carved with strange creatures, and smoke wafting from it made the space seem filled with mist. Upon entering the second floor, Meng Hao sat in a nearby chair. Wei Li stood beside him, looking around. Her heart nearly burst with excitement. She'd never imagined she'd stand in such a place. Meng Hao sat calm and still, eyes closed, unspeaking. Moments later, Su Pingping approached, her smile masking the bitterness she felt inwardly. "Senior, you left so many demon hearts in the main hall. I can't help but be nervous." Meng Hao opened his eyes and looked at her with an enigmatic smile. Her nervousness deepened, and her smile felt forced. "I want a magical flight item," he said calmly, "the best you have." "I already have everything prepared, Senior," Su Pingping said. She clapped her hands 3 times, and 3 women in delicate gauze skirts floated out from the incense smoke. Each carried a silver platter held high. By now, Xianxia and the others had reached the second floor and stood off to the side. They cared less about the items than about Meng Hao. The 3 platters displayed a reddish copper sword, a violet wooden boat, and a flying shuttle. Su Pingping smiled at Meng Hao. "Red copper sword," she said. "It expands when it rushes against the wind, becoming 3,000 meters long. 9 levels of ghost images will appear inside, accommodating 300 passengers. It contains a swarm of 10,000 short swords." Violet wooden boat. It accommodates 200 passengers with no offensive or defensive spell formations. However, its speed matches a first severing cultivator. Unfortunately, it consumes 1 low-grade spirit stone every 3 breaths. Soul flying shuttle, only 9 meters long with average speed. Its greatest advantage is the wind blade function. It produces 1 per hour. As long as you have spirit stones, there's no limit to production. These 3 are the highest level flying items we manufacture at the Cloudburst Pavilion. Which would you like, fellow Taoist? When the Chosen saw the 3 items, longing filled their faces. They well knew these were incredible. Meng Hao frowned slightly. While others might find them high quality, considering his cultivation base, they fell short of his expectations. Su Pingping's heart quivered at his frown, and her breathing quickened. His expression prompted her to speculate about him. She hurried on. "Although I advise against purchasing these items, fellow Taoist, they seem incredible but are relatively ordinary. Despite their cost, their standard manufacture, many people in South Heaven own them." "Oh," Meng Hao said, looking at Su Pingping. "Senior," she said softly, her eyes glittering, "if you have enough demon hearts, the Cloudburst Pavilion can offer you a one-of-a-kind precious treasure." She raised her right hand, performed an incantation, and pointed at the incense burner. The burner began to rumble, drawing all eyes. Vast quantities of smoke poured out, within which loomed a bronze war chariot. The chariot emanated an air of ancientness and was surrounded by crackling lightning. It bore scars of countless battles. An indescribable pressure emanated from it. Numerous flying beasts covered its surface, almost seeming alive. Although no one else could tell when Meng Hao looked, they seemed to live and struggle, roaring in a way that caused his mind and heart to tremble. He made a slight sound, then touched his left eye. He blinked 9 times, causing the immortal chi of immortal shows the way to circulate within him. When he looked again, the beasts merged into a black wing. Unfortunately, there was only one. Meng Hao looked away and closed his eyes. After a moment, he opened them and looked at Su Pingping. "How much?" he asked. Su Pingping's heart trembled. Things were not going as planned for this item. Meng Hao's earlier actions made her regret. "Fellow Taoist, this item isn't for sale, it's—" Meng Hao's face darkened as a shocking pressure enveloped the area. It seemed as if a storm were coming. This chapter was sponsored by Malokanend, Jonathan, LB and Lim Derek. Chapter 663, Rich and Headstrong. Meng Hao looked at Su Pingping for a moment, then retracted his energy. The second floor returned to normal. However, the pressure had caused sweat to stream down her back. It felt like facing some ancient beast. Only Su Pingping had felt the pressure. Neither Xianxia nor the Chosen felt it, only noticing Su Pingping's changed expression. "Name a price," Meng Hao said coolly. His heart surged at hearing such words from himself. In his hundreds of years of cultivation, he'd always been broke. Even when he occasionally gained profit, the copper mirror would inevitably suck it away. But now, he finally had the confidence to achieve his childhood dream. "I'm rich, fools." Next to him, Wei Li's eyes shone brightly. She felt that Meng Hao was almost glowing, emanating an aura that battered against her. Intimidated by Meng Hao's display, Su Pingping said nervously, "It really isn't an issue of the price." 6,000 low-grade demon hearts, Meng Hao said, lifting his chin proudly. "That's—" Not enough. How about 8,000? His expression remained calm, but inwardly the surging feeling grew more intense. Going from broke to wealthy made him feel he could buy the whole shop. This confidence had nothing to do with cultivation base. The more confident he felt, the more powerful his words became. I'm really rich, fools. Even Su Pingping, experienced and knowledgeable, was shocked by his confidence. Her eyes widened and she drew a deep breath. 8,000 low-grade demon hearts was an extremely high price. Wei Li stared at Meng Hao with wide eyes, calculating how much that translated to in spirit stones. The Chosen and Jai Xiaxia heard his words, and their jaws dropped in shock. Suddenly, they realized he truly exuded the air of a rich person. The eyes of the female disciples began to shine as they looked at Meng Hao. They hadn't noticed before, but now they saw him as elegant, dashing, and extraordinary, clearly different from ordinary folk. Although Meng Hao tried to keep his expression normal, anyone looking at it would feel as if these characters were written there. I'm Mr. Moneybags. Su Pingping's eyes widened, her heart pounding. I think. Still not enough, Meng Hao said, waving his hand like the rich folk he remembered from Yunji County. No problem. 10,000 low-grade demon hearts works for me. When he saw the shock on the bystanders' faces, Meng Hao felt pleased, even more so than from a cultivation breakthrough. Su Pingping gasped. Jai Xiaxia's eyes fixed on Meng Hao. The junior leader and the Chosen gaped with shock. Su Pingping struggled for a moment before replying, Senior, this war chariot arrived recently. It appeared on the border between the second and third rings. I haven't even notified the sect yet. Meng Hao's expression remained calm, but his eyes flickered. He didn't mind the address. If my speculations are correct, Senior, you've come to the Milky Way Sea because of the Sea Devils in the second ring and the legendary ancient battleship. This bronze war chariot is filled with ancientness and is obviously from ancient times. For it to appear here indicates it likely originated from the ancient battleship. I have one request, Senior. When you search for the ancient battleship, will you take me with you? You don't need to assist me. As long as I set foot on it, all obligations are fulfilled. In return, I'll sell it for 5,000 demon hearts. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. And what if I don't look for the ancient battleship? He asked coolly. Without hesitation, Su Pingping replied, If that is your wish, Senior, I must accept it. She quickly incanted and pointed toward the incense burner. The smoke parted, and the war chariot flew out as if trying to escape. Meng Hao waved his right hand, stopping the chariot in midair. It was pulled down, shrinking to the size of a hand as it landed on his palm. He put it into his bag of holding. He stood up, ignoring Su Pingping. With Wei Li at his side and the Chosen's gazes burning upon him, he walked like Steward Joe, the moneybags of Yunji County, hands clasped behind his back as he strolled toward the stairs. 1. Steward Joe was first mentioned in Chapter 1 as well as a few subsequent chapters. Meng Hao owed him 3 pieces of silver. When he reached the first stair, Meng Hao looked back at Su Pingping. Give me a voice transmission talisman, he said. Su Pingping instantly went wild with joy. Panting, she took out a voice transmission talisman and handed it over respectfully. Meng Hao put the talisman away and, escorted by Su Pingping, walked down the stairs and left the cloudburst pavilion. Outside, the sky was dark, and the sea breeze blew against his face. Wei Li was sweating and dazed as she glanced between Meng Hao and the cloudburst pavilion. Considering how late it was, Meng Hao used Wei Li's help to find a place to stay. He rented a private residence with its own main gate. It was actually an immortal's cave, the most expensive available in Seahold. It had a defensive spell formation and a passageway to the seafloor, with a special meditation chamber. Despite being on the seafloor, the chamber fell under Seahold's defensive formations, so no sea beasts would come near it. At first, Meng Hao planned to purchase the residence, but he couldn't bear to spend so many spirit stones and chose to rent instead. The residence had many rooms, so Wei Li had her own. As night wore on, she thought back to everything that had happened and how Meng Hao had saved her. Unconsciously, his face became deeply imprinted in her mind, yet she knew the vast gap between them in status and identity. After a moment, she sighed and closed her eyes to meditate. Meng Hao sat cross-legged in his own room in silence. Around the third watch, he suddenly opened his eyes. I'm finally rich, he murmured. It's too bad Steward Joe is long dead. If I have a chance in the future, I'll find his descendants and pay back those 3 pieces of silver I owe. Or, no, I'm rich now, I'll pay back a little extra. He smiled and patted his bag of holding. He raised his hand, and the bronze war chariot appeared. It was impossible to tell how many springs and autumns had passed, but the chariot was covered with rust and filled with ancientness, buried in darkness for countless years. A strange feeling welled up in Meng Hao. The bronze war chariot seemed to retell stories of bloodbaths it had witnessed, describing an explosive, bloodthirsty bellicosity of some long-forgotten age. The beasts carved on its surface looked dead, but in Meng Hao's eyes, they were alive. It was as if they had slept for tens of thousands of years, waiting to awaken and roam heaven and earth. Meng Hao's eyes glittered as he channeled cultivation base power into the war chariot through his right hand. Faint ripples emanated, and the chariot began to expand. Prepared for this, Meng Hao quickly stepped into the courtyard. He raised his right hand. With a rumbling sound, the war chariot flew into the air, continuing to expand until it was roughly 9 meters large. Ripples spread out and the war chariot glowed with light. The ripples seemed filled with decay, and the glow was somewhat dim. Meng Hao flickered and reappeared inside the war chariot. His right hand touched its side as he sent more cultivation base power into it. The chariot trembled and sped up into the air. It moved with such incredible speed that Sohe became a tiny dot below. The chariot screamed through the night air without vibrating or shaking. At that moment, Saint Sun's soul sat cross-legged meditating in the tall tower in Sohe's center. Next to him was Madame Lin, elegant and poised, gripping a huge feather in both hands, using it to conjure. The feather emanated an aura of rot and decay. Swirling white lights wafted through the air for Saint Sun's soul to breathe in. He wore a black robe. In the middle of cultivation, Saint Sun's soul's eyes suddenly opened, and he gazed into the distance. "What's wrong?" Madame Lin asked, looking at him. "Nothing," he replied. "That troublesome fellow is testing a magical item, HMPH. Both are equally mediocre." His face grew dark. It was hard to tell what was on his mind. "Didn't he give you a flagon of alcohol as a gift?" As soon as Saint Sun's soul heard the word alcohol, his face twitched. "He was actually threatening me," he said. Madame Lin stared in shock but didn't respond. Saint Sun's soul didn't bring up the matter of the alcohol again. Meanwhile, Meng Hao stood in the war chariot, frowning as he examined it. "This thing is about as fast as a first-severing cultivator. However, it expends a lot of cultivation base power. Too bad I can actually move much faster without it." Furthermore, his eyes flickered as he looked at the rust marks which were slowly growing larger. "The more I use it, the more damage spreads. Soon, the rust will fill the whole thing and it will be useless." With that, Meng Hao raised his right hand and slapped it down onto the chariot. A boom echoed and the chariot trembled. Low-pitched roaring sounds emanated from within, and illusory figures surged out. They were fierce beasts, each unique. There was a giant ape, a horned lion, even a two-headed giant bear. The various beasts all lifted their heads and roared. However, they were all restrained by amorphous chains connecting them to the chariot. Also, all their eyes were closed. Not a single one had opened its eyes. As soon as they appeared, intense pressure filled the area. His frown deepened. He just noticed the rust was spreading through the war chariot even faster than before. Chapter 664, War Chariot. "At the most, I can use it only 10 more times." Meng Hao examined the rust. It looked like rot that turned the bronze to scrap metal wherever it went. "I feel I'm not using it properly," he murmured. "If using it damages it then, his heart trembled. Not using it properly. His eyes glittered, and his trembling intensified as he thought back to the scene revealed by Immortal Shows the Way in the Cloudburst Pavilion. After a moment's thought, Meng Hao slapped the war chariot again. The beasts surrounding it vanished and it began to shrink. Soon it was the size of an infant's hand, resting on his palm. After detailed inspection, he suddenly spotted some clues. Its surface is inscribed with ancient magical symbols that don't seem to be part of the war chariot. And there are the chain carvings. They don't merge perfectly with the original, as if added later. He suddenly closed his right eye, blinked 9 times, and unleashed the immortal chi of Immortal Shows the Way into his eye. Immediately, the war chariot's appearance changed. It was no longer a war chariot but a mass of ferocious beasts, intertwined such that from a distance they looked like a black wing. The black wing was indistinct, but Meng Hao was sure it was a butterfly's wing. His heart trembled. He circulated more chi of Immortal Shows the Way, then focused on the butterfly wing. The instant he looked at it, roaring filled his mind. The world shattered like glass. Within that shattering, countless flickering images appeared that Meng Hao couldn't see clearly. But one image instantly branded itself into his memories. He saw a land where clouds roiled in the sky, filled with crackling lightning. A man in black garments stood in the war chariot, looking coldly down at the lands below. It almost seemed as if the man were the heavens, the will of the sky itself. An interminably rotating vortex appeared on his forehead, and in his right hand was a string of blank, white prayer beads ready to receive sealing marks. The war chariot the man stood in looked similar to Meng Hao's, except it had no magical symbols. Beneath the war chariot was an endless sea with an enormous tree at its center, towering into the sky. A small boy sat at the crown, smiling as he looked out over the world. 9 butterflies fluttered around the boy. Off in the distance, countless living things practiced cultivation. 1. This is not the first time 9 butterflies have been mentioned in the story. If you don't remember, you can check out chapters 555, 587, 613, and 652. Everything was quiet and peaceful. Meng Hao's mind roared, then the vision faded. He panted, a strange light gleaming in his eyes as he looked at the war chariot in his palm. That vision, his eyes flickered. After taking a few breaths, he raised his left hand and pushed it onto the bronze war chariot, slowly wiping away a magical symbol. In total, 99 magical symbols covered the war chariot. A gentle but ferocious light rose from Meng Hao's hand. He wiped away a magical symbol, his face growing pale. Though it seemed simple, he'd burned considerable cultivation base power. As soon as the symbol was wiped away, the bronze war chariot trembled. Howls erupted from within, as if an ancient giant was awakening. When the sound reached his ears, Meng Hao's spirit was shaken. These magical symbols and chains were added later. If not a seal, then a method to control the chariot due to a lack of understanding of its proper usage. That improper usage is the source of the damage. He took a deep breath and was about to wipe away a second symbol when his hand stopped. Doubt flickered in his eyes. Why could only I see the images on the war chariot? Anyone who saw them would know something was different about it inside. His eyes flickered as he looked at his own torso. After a moment he slowly murmured, "Immortal shows the way, Chuman Tai." He could see the images and know the correct way to use it because of the immortal chi of immortal shows the way. Could this be an immortal treasure? He raised his left hand again and began wiping away a second symbol. The bronze war chariot glowed with more intensity, and the howling from inside grew clearer. Next, Meng Hao wiped away a third symbol, then a fourth. When he wiped away the 10th, the war chariot emitted a droning sound and expanded to 30 meters large. The glow emanated in all directions, as well as a pulsing pressure. Even Meng Hao felt the intense pressure, making it impossible to approach. He was instantly forced back. After erasing 10 symbols, his cultivation base was virtually exhausted. Closing his eyes to recover, he frowned. The more symbols I wipe away, the more difficult it gets. His body flickered as he shot toward the war chariot. As he neared, a ring of yellow light suddenly appeared around it. It quickly expanded, filling him with danger. He shot backward, emerging from the yellow light. Then he unleashed a sliver of the immortal chi of immortal shows the way through his body and shot back. This time, no circle of yellow light appeared. He moved with incredible speed, arriving at the war chariot in the blink of an eye. He had little immortal chi left, and it wouldn't last long. He placed his hand on the war chariot. After a moment, he rotated his cultivation base, pouring power into it, but the power disappeared like a rock sinking into the ocean. No reaction. Meng Hao stilled his cultivation base, then, without hesitation, sent out immortal chi, only a sliver, but the instant it flowed from his hand into the chariot, the entire world seemed to rumble. A gigantic vortex appeared in the sky, booming as it spun. Countless bolts of lightning crackled in all directions. The entire area went wild, as if heaven and earth were collapsing. Meng Hao suddenly felt as if he were fusing with the war chariot, becoming one. Then he saw the image of the black-clothed man with the vortex on his forehead, from his vision moments ago. At the same time, a thrumming sounded from the chariot as countless ferocious beasts appeared. All were fastened with chains and roared silently. They began to run forward, pulling the war chariot through the sky. It became a shooting star that flew off into the distance with indescribable speed. Its speed caused booms to fill the sky. Yellow ripples swept through the night sky. Black-robed Saint Sun's soul suddenly stood up in the tower and sea-hold. Astonishment filled his eyes as he vanished and reappeared in midair. He gazed into the distance, his expression changing multiple times. "What magical item is that?" he gasped. Moments ago, his cultivation base had quivered with terror. The feeling was akin to facing the sect's ancestral legacy treasure. Is that a legacy treasure? He thought. Meng Hao's heart was filled with shock. The strand of immortal qi he sent from immortal shows the way caused the war chariot to leave Seahold in the blink of an eye. Although seawater was still beneath him, he couldn't tell if he was still in the third ring. This stretch of sea looked strange, the waters almost black. Everything was quiet, not even a ripple marred the surface. Where did that speed come from? Gasped Meng Hao. He looked down at the war chariot shocked. This is a precious treasure. Unfortunately, only immortal power can work it. This treasure won't recognize my cultivation base. He sighed. The only immortal qi he had was from immortal shows the way. He could use slivers for the celestial vision technique, but using it in battle was like trying to put out a burning horse cart with a single cup of water. Immortal qi. So this is really an immortal treasure. It only works when fueled by immortal qi. As he considered this, his heart suddenly trembled. Is the qi of immortal shows the way really immortal qi? Could it be something else? Before he could consider further, he suddenly looked down at the sea. The still waters suddenly filled with ripples. A crocodile appeared 300 meters long, heading toward him. Crocodiles normally didn't appear in the sea, but one was here now. It was completely black, with somber, cold eyes. On its back were countless ferocious bumps and lumps. Cross-legged amidst the bumps sat a man wearing dilapidated clothing. His expression was cold as he looked up at Meng Hao. The instant he looked at Meng Hao, the man's eyes filled with bloodthirsty killing intent. "Cultivator," he said, his unpleasant voice hoarse and grating. Blackened teeth showed when he opened his mouth. To Meng Hao, he radiated complete vileness. An aura of spirit severing exploded from him. At the same time, the crocodile lifted its head and roared, also exploding with a spirit-severing aura. The seawater churned, and a pulsating, fishy stench rose. "This is the Devil's Sea," the man said. "Now that you're here, you won't be leaving." With that, he made a grasping motion, causing the air to condense. Incredible pressure weighed down. Meng Hao gaped, "Devil's Sea." Meng Hao gave a cold snort as he watched the man collapse the air with a gesture. He stopped, standing motionless in the war chariot. He let the roaring reach him, but as it neared, the chariot emitted a yellow ring of light. The ring expanded and slammed into the collapsing air. A boom rattled out, followed by cracking sounds. Everywhere the yellow ring passed was left calm. A red glow appeared in the man's eyes. He leaped into the air and shot toward Meng Hao, followed by the crocodile, which opened its mouth and ferociously charged out of the water. The man closed in without incantation, reaching his hand in a claw-like gesture. His fingers turned pitch black and emanated black fog. The fog twisted into a vicious flood dragon that charged toward Meng Hao. A boom echoed as the flood dragon slammed into the yellow ring and was deflected. The crocodile hit the ring, letting out a blood-curdling scream as its teeth shattered. It retreated at top speed. Meng Hao gave a faint smile. His opponent retreated, anxiety and doubt on his face. Meng Hao's smile widened. He realized the war chariot truly was precious. As long as he was inside, it would defend him even without immortal qi. "There is neither enmity nor hatred between us," said Meng Hao. "Why fight? I came by accident, so I'll leave." He placed his hand on the war chariot and circulated immortal shows the way to speed away. Suddenly, the man in dilapidated clothing grew vicious. He lifted his head and let out an ear-piercing shout. His body distorted and expanded. In the blink of an eye, black scales replaced his skin. His shape changed into a black flood dragon. His body flickered, and he was now over 300 meters long. His eyes radiated savagery and avarice as he stared at Meng Hao. "You will stay," said the flood dragon, speaking human language as black flames accompanied his words. "Consuming you will improve my cultivation base. That treasure of yours will also stay." Black flames from the flood dragon emanated a green glow with a rotten stench, poison. They shot toward Meng Hao at top speed. A sea of flames surrounded him, emanating intense heat that caused everything to ripple and distort. Waves undulated on the sea below as if unable to bear the heat. The crocodile had long since retreated in the distance, floating in the water. Meng Hao's face darkened as he looked coldly at the flood dragon. He lifted the hand on the chariot and stopped rotating immortal shows the way. "I thought you were a cultivator, but you're a sea demon," said Meng Hao calmly. "Since you want to die, I'll help you." His calm demeanor masked his desire to kill. As he spoke, Meng Hao moved forward. He stepped out of the chariot and entered the black sea of flames. Seeing him emerge left the flood dragon astonished, and he immediately backed up. "I can be crafty too," said Meng Hao. He waved his hand and another sea of flames sprang up. These red flames shot high into the sky around him. As soon as they touched the black flames, an intense rumble sounded. Meng Hao emerged on the outside. The flood dragon's face fell and he continued retreating. But before he could escape, Meng Hao turned into green smoke. His heart pounded. Meng Hao emerging from the chariot was obviously not good. Even as he retreated, Meng Hao suddenly appeared behind him. A hand raised and a fist descended. The fist seemingly landed on air, but a huge rumble sounded and the flood dragon felt a mountain crushing him. Blood sprayed from his mouth and astonishment filled his face. He let out a miserable shriek. At the same time, the crocodile opened its mouth and charged, ignoring danger as it shot toward Meng Hao. "Trifling first severing cultivation base," said Meng Hao. "You're not the first." Without looking, he punched backward. Bam! A tremor ran through the crocodile, and starting from its head it began to shatter. In a blink, shattering spread through its body. It exploded into bloody pieces. A fist-sized black demon heart transformed into a black beam that flew into Meng Hao's hand. He sealed it in his bag and looked at the flood dragon, whose trembling intensified. He took a deep breath and turned around. Clouds circulated beneath him, a divine ability enabling him to descend into the waters. Meng Hao's right hand flickered in an incantation gesture, and he pointed. Demon Sealing 8th Hex. Demonic chi appeared, transforming into invisible strands that wrapped around the flood dragon. It instantly stopped, leaving the dragon scared witless. As it struggled, Meng Hao waved his right hand, causing 10 wooden time swords to fly out and pierce through it. A blood-curdling shriek echoed as the flood dragon began withering. Intense fear filled his expression as he felt his life force disappearing. Feeling death approach, he suddenly shook and spit a pearl from his mouth. About the size of a fist, it was white, not black. As soon as it appeared, it emanated a soft glow and thick, fragrant aroma. Spiritual energy in the area grew stronger. A powerful shockwave spread, causing booms as the dragon shook free of the strands, forced back the swords and shot down into the sea, carrying the pearl. In a blink, he splashed into the water and disappeared. A strange light appeared in Meng Hao's eyes. His first thought was that he could sell the pearl for an exorbitant price. As soon as the thought came, his hesitation disappeared. He flashed through the air, circulating immortal shows the way as he stepped onto the chariot. His hand touched it, and it instantly vibrated and shot down toward the sea. In a blink, he was underwater. Everything was pitch black, but he quickly spotted the vicious flood dragon ahead, confident he'd escaped disaster. But the flood dragon suddenly heard a rumble. He turned, eyes wide with shock, seeing the 30-meter war chariot. He tried to dodge but was too slow. Bang! The chariot struck the flood dragon directly, causing a miserable howl. Its body broke apart. It exploded and the white pearl flew out. Shockingly, inside was a miniature flood dragon, terror and astonishment on its face. The pearl shot off at high speed, but no matter how fast, it was slower than Meng Hao's chariot. Meng Hao shot in pursuit. Inside the white pearl, the flood dragon's face was unyielding and filled with madness. It let out a miserable cry amplified by divine will. "Dawn Immortal, save me." When Meng Hao heard Dawn Immortal, his mind trembled. It was a name he'd never forget. But this wasn't the time to think. His eyes glittered as he pursued. His hand stretched out and grabbed the pearl. The flood dragon's struggles meant nothing. Meng Hao sealed the pearl and put it in his bag. However, in that instant, a faint sigh echoed in the darkness. A single sigh, but it instantly numbed Meng Hao's scalp. Cold sweat broke out and his face fell. The resurrection lily inside him suddenly went mad. It wanted to reveal itself and cry out to whoever had sighed. Meng Hao's mind trembled and he caused the chariot to move. He built up immortal chi, about to speed away, when a tentacle suddenly shot from the deep sea. Intense crisis crashed through Meng Hao. The resurrection lily struggling reached a peak. Boom! Meng Hao released all his immortal chi into the chariot. It rumbled and shot out of the water at incredible speed, transforming into a beam of light. Almost simultaneously, a gigantic tentacle erupted from the sea's surface. As he shot away, Meng Hao barely glanced back at the enormous tentacle before the world blurred. What he saw made his mind tremble with confusion. What is that? His face was pale, his expression disbelieving. In the Milky Way Sea, only the ancient underworld ship could affect him like this. But now something else could. What he saw astonished him even more than the ancient underworld ship. That's the Dawn Immortal. What he saw was a gigantic black tentacle, smooth and glossy, almost whip-like, with a few black leaves at its end. This was not a beast's tentacle, it was a plant branch. Only Meng Hao, given his situation, could immediately know what it was. A resurrection lily branch. From this single branch, Meng Hao concluded that deep in the dark sea was an incomparably enormous resurrection lily. Though just a branch, it stretched from the sea's depths. He could only imagine how large and terrifying its main trunk was. Its frightening speed matched his war chariot. Meng Hao knew he escaped only because his position was close to the surface. Though he and the branch emerged simultaneously, the chariot couldn't match the lily's speed. How many colors does it have? Meng Hao thought, panting. The chariot had left the Black Sea. The waters below looked normal, and ahead he saw storm winds. He knew he was near the third ring's edge. He took a deep breath. The sky was turning light as he put the chariot into his bag. His body flashed as he headed towards Seahold at top speed. He arrived before the sky fully lit. He sat cross-legged, his expression dark and unstable. The night had left him shaken. That flood dragon was a devil, one of the sea devils. A black sea, the second ring of the Milky Way Sea. I never imagined a terrifying resurrection lily was hiding at its bottom. Was that the Dawn Immortal? No wonder the resurrection lily inside me was going mad. How are the third ring and second ring connected? The third ring has demons with white-bone lily seals. The second ring has devils that turn into people and venerate the Dawn Immortal. And Reverend Silverlamp, where is he? So many mysteries in the Milky Way Sea. First the underworld ship, then the ancient battleship. Now the Dawn Immortal. His expression grew complex, then his eyes glittered brightly. Things grow more complicated and dangerous. I must be more careful about the 10th Wang clan patriarch. Who's more powerful, the Dawn Immortal or him? He immediately knew the answer. The Dawn Immortal, though he had no proof, he was certain. He sighed, closed his eyes, and ceased thinking about these matters. He began to meditate. Early morning, sunlight flickered on the sea. Crystalline waters surrounded Seahold, which looked like a giant beast opening its eyes. The city bustled with activity. Many people came and went, most not residents. Some recuperated, some sold demon hearts, others hunted. People were everywhere. When Wei Li came to pay respects, Meng Hao opened his eyes. After tidying up, he had her take him to a clothing shop. He finally put aside the night's troubling events. Being rich conquered all. He even considered buying clothing for Wei Li. But seeing it didn't match her mask, he saved his spirit stones. Wei Li felt wrong but didn't dare speak. She followed, irritated, as Meng Hao flaunted his wealth. Everyone in the shop was awed by his domineering attitude. He walked with people trailing. When he pointed at something, they rushed to package it. It feels good to be rich, he thought. He left looking completely different. He wore a blue robe like the sky, emanating magical force. In sunlight, it was beautiful and delicate. Silver dragons embroidered the sleeves. The materials came from an impressive sea demon and had built-in functions. Meng Hao was pleased. He also purchased a gold belt trimmed with violet and jade pendants. Each item was expensive. When he walked the streets, people stared. He let out a long sigh. Wei Li walked behind, pouting. "All right, let's buy a bag of holding," he said, swishing his sleeve. Wei Li gave a cold harumph internally. Now she barely remembered being awed by him. He was just a haughty moneybags. When Meng Hao entered the holding items shop, his clothing and handsome features, plus his domineering rich air, made everyone look over with shining eyes. A big spender had arrived, and they greeted him eagerly. Meng Hao looked around and immediately said he wanted 10 bags of holding. After leaving, Wei Li asked, "Senior, why so many?" "For fun," he replied earnestly. Wei Li gaped. This didn't seem like her savior. He was completely different. How could he change so much? Meng Hao was pleased at her shock. He patted his bag and lifted his chin like Steward Joe. "Let's buy magic rings." In the magic ring shop, his domineering air shocked everyone. They gaped as he bought 300 magic rings in one breath. The rings self-detonated. Throw one and it exploded. 300 explosions would be terrifying. They were expensive and the shop didn't have many, but Meng Hao bought them all. He left sighing, shaking his head. Glancing at Seahold, he thought there was nothing here he couldn't buy. This was how Meng Hao spent the day, with Wei Li leading. Soon, word spread. People talked about an incredibly rich man in Seahold. Evening fell. Wei Li was tired, but Meng Hao seemed as fresh as morning. Wei Li smiled wryly. "Senior, where now?" "The Sun Soul Society's Demon Heart Exchange Shop," he said. The day had been fulfilling. He'd lived his dream of being rich. He hoped to continue this way, and he walked on in high spirits. "Senior, you're going the wrong way," Wei Li said grudgingly. Meng Hao stopped and turned around. Evening, they walked through the city under the setting sun. Meng Hao wore his blue robe, 10 rings on his fingers. He looked impressive, obviously rich and respectable. Yet it was also obvious he'd recently stumbled into wealth. The Sun Soul Society's Demon Heart Exchange Shop was in Seahold Center. It was pure white, shaped like a skull. A crowd was inside. Despite the late hour, people exchanged demon hearts for spirit stones. When Meng Hao entered, his bejeweled figure attracted attention immediately. Everyone began talking. "That guy is... I saw him today, the super rich one. He bought 300 magic rings in one breath." "So that's him. I heard shops were sold out." "Who is he? How many demon hearts does he have?" Meng Hao's expression was the same as usual. He entered the shop and looked around, eventually catching sight of a Sun Soul Society disciple. When the man saw Meng Hao looking at him, he quickly approached, clasped hands, and bowed. "Greetings, Senior. How many demon hearts would you like to exchange? If it's a small quantity, I would be happy to help you. If it's a large quantity, well, in that case, I can take you to the second floor, where a sect elder will receive you." "Second floor, then," said Meng Hao placidly. The Sun Soul Society disciple's eyes began to shine brightly when he heard this. He quickly transmitted a message to the elder, at the same time leading Meng Hao toward the staircase. Everyone watched on enviously as Meng Hao and Wei Li walked up to the second floor. As soon as they arrived, a smiling, white-haired old man walked out. "I am Sun Yunliang. Greetings, fellow Taoist." When he saw Meng Hao's clothing and the rings on his fingers, he knew exactly what kind of person he was dealing with. His smile grew even more resplendent and he said, "Come, come, please follow me." He led Meng Hao to a chair, after which 2 maidservants appeared with teapots to serve him tea. "This is a local specialty, Xianxia tea," explained Sun Yunliang, smiling. "It grows only in the second ring and there are only 7 parent trees that produce it. Please give it a try, fellow Taoist. What do you think?" Meng Hao smiled and then lifted the cup up to examine the tea. He took a sip, after which his eyes misted up and his expression grew radiant. His scholar's aura suddenly became especially prominent. Despite his current state of luxury, it was impossible to completely block. It was almost like he suddenly became a different person. After a long moment, he put the teacup down. The mistiness in his eyes faded away, and they began to glow with admiration. "Ah, the cleansing of disquiets both past and present, the livening of the spirit that can only come from excellent tea," said Meng Hao. Sun Yunliang smiled broadly, and a strange gleam flickered in his eyes. At first glance, he could tell that Meng Hao was newly rich. However, when he spoke of the tea, his entire person emanated a light and pleasant air. The air that Meng Hao now emanated caused the old man to suddenly question his previous judgment. Wei Li stared in shock at Meng Hao. What had occurred just now yet again caused her to think that she was yet again dealing with a completely different person. At this point, Sun Yunliang directly asked, "Fellow Taoist, how many demon hearts did you come here to exchange?" "The exchange rate today is 1 low-grade demon heart for 600 low-grade spirit stones." Meng Hao was just about to reply when suddenly, footsteps and voices could be heard coming up the stairs from the first floor. "Don't worry, gentlemen. When I, Joe, make a promise, the results are never disappointing. I can get you 700 spirit stones for 1 low-grade demon heart." When Meng Hao heard this, he had to bite his tongue to hold back from speaking. He lifted the teacup and took a sip. Sun Yunliang's face twitched and glared toward the staircase. This chapter was sponsored by Metal Duck, Kai Yip, and Harrison Terry. Chapter 667, Gamble Real. A middle-aged man smiled as he led 7 older men up to the second floor. The 7 old men wore long brocaded robes. At a glance, they looked famous and extraordinary. Their eyes were bright, their cultivation bases extraordinary. All were at the great circle of the nascent soul stage. Though they smiled, their smiles were filled with unyielding pride. "After you, fellow Taoists," said the middle-aged man with a sincere smile. Excited, he led them up. He caught sight of Meng Hao and Wei Li but completely ignored them. Sun Yunliang was originally frowning, but seeing the 7 old men, his eyes brightened. He rose and hurried over to greet them. "The 7 tycoons of Seahold," said Sun Yunliang, laughing as he clasped hands and bowed. "Your presence honors us." The 7 old men smiled and clasped hands in return. Meng Hao remained unmoved, sipping tea. Wei Li's pupils constricted when she saw them. Awed, she turned to Meng Hao. "Senior, these 7 men are famous shopkeepers here in Seahold. Their cultivation bases are extraordinary, and they control vast amounts of demon hearts. The demon heart exchange shops set up by the 3 sects here don't cater just to ordinary cultivators. Shops must exchange demon hearts yearly. Which sect they choose is up to them. The 3 sects have no say." Meng Hao lifted his teacup and sipped. His eyes seemed clouded, empty, as if he wasn't mentally present. Wei Li wasn't sure he'd heard her. Sun Yunliang felt joy looking at the middle-aged man, whose eyes flickered with admiration. The man looked excited and treated the shopkeepers with incredible courtesy. The group laughed and exchanged pleasantries as they walked to the seating area. Sun Yunliang was about to have a maidservant serve tea when the middle-aged man frowned at Meng Hao and Wei Li. He transmitted to Sun Yunliang, "Elder son, who are these 2? "Customers who came to exchange demon hearts," he responded via transmission. The middle-aged man felt more at ease. He thought they were Sun Yunliang's friends. "Elder, the 7 tycoons are honored guests. Shouldn't someone from downstairs handle these loafers?" Sun Yunliang hesitated, then turned to Meng Hao, clasped hands and smiled. "Fellow Taoist, I beg your pardon. Would you go downstairs? I'll arrange someone to help you exchange your demon hearts." When Sun Yunliang spoke, cloudiness vanished from Meng Hao's eyes. He put down his teacup. A maidservant from the middle-aged man's group stepped forward and took it. Meng Hao frowned, rose, and looked at Sun Yunliang. "Fine. What's the current exchange rate?" "Set your mind at ease," he said with a smile. "The price is 600 spirit stones per demon heart." He clapped his hands, and a Sun Soul Society disciple came up from the first floor. After bowing respectfully, he gestured for Meng Hao to follow downstairs. Meng Hao smiled faintly, his expression calm. They'd taken his tea and tried to dismiss him. If the price was acceptable, he could accept. But they offered him less than the 7 old men. Continuing to smile, he sat back down. The action made Sun Yunliang frown instantly. Meng Hao didn't seem sensible. The middle-aged man grew impatient. Meng Hao would exchange maybe a few hundred demon hearts at most. "Friend," he said, "this shop belongs to the Sun Soul Society. I'm an honor guard here. This isn't a place to cause a disturbance. Going downstairs is better than being assisted." He'd seen many like this, nothing compared to the 7 tycoons. Each had vast demon heart holdings, and he'd worked hard to attract them. "Go ahead and try," Meng Hao said coolly. Sun Yunliang's expression turned serious. The middle-aged man frowned, suddenly unsure who Meng Hao was. The 7 old men didn't look pleased. They could exchange at any shop. They chose this place for the middle-aged man's diligent attention and the slightly better exchange rate here. Saint Sun Soul commanded the city. The center old man calmly said, "Elder son, honor guard Joe, we have limited time. Perhaps we should do business another time." Honor guard Joe felt anxious. He was about to drive Meng Hao away when Sun Yunliang stepped forward. "Fellow Taoist," he said, looking at Meng Hao, "spirit stones aren't an issue. I decide here, so how about 700 spirit stones per demon heart?" Meng Hao felt embarrassed. Smiling, he rose to leave when the rightmost old man sneered. "So anybody can get 700 spirit stones," he said. "Honor guard Joe, how many will we get?" The other 6 immediately nodded. Their shops were backed by sects and clans. They were intelligent enough to seize opportunity. "If he gets 700, another said, "we should get at least 800. We shouldn't receive the same price as a random passerby. Honor guard Joe, was that your promise?" "Correct," another said. "We're exchanging huge amounts. We have more than you normally exchange in months downstairs. If someone with a few hundred gets our price, how can we maintain face?" Sun Yunliang's face flickered. He was in a predicament. Honor guard Joe glared at Meng Hao and Wei Li, his face unsightly. "Elder son, this is inappropriate, isn't it?" asked another. Sun Yunliang hesitated, sighing inwardly. Before he could speak, Meng Hao did. "So you have many demon hearts?" he asked the 7 men. "More than you, assuredly," said the first coldly. Meng Hao's eyes flashed. He gave a cold harumph and flicked his sleeve. "Do you dare to compete? The loser forfeits all demon hearts to the winner." The 7 old men's expressions flickered. They looked at Meng Hao, and the atmosphere grew stifling. Sun Yunliang hastened forward, clasping hands to both parties. "Gentlemen, no need for anger. This is my fault for not introducing you. Fellow Taoist, these are the 7 tycoons, running Seahold's 7 largest businesses. They exchange huge quantities of demon hearts yearly. Give me face and drop it, yes. Meng Hao's face flickered imperceptibly. He gave another cold snort but softer. Very well, elder son, for you, I'll drop it. He turned to head downstairs. The 7 old men's eyes flashed as they stared at him. Suddenly, one flickered in front of him, blocking his way. Hold it. What are you trying to pull? Growled Meng Hao. An alarmed look flickered in his eyes. From youth, he'd grown accustomed to conning people. After hundreds of years, he'd perfected the act. It had seeped into his bones. The 7 old men might be shrewd, but they couldn't read Meng Hao's expression. Honor Guard Zhou laughed coldly, scorn filling his eyes. Sun Yunliang frowned at Meng Hao, then the 7 old men. The blocking old man stood there, eyes glittering, silent. The 6 others looked excited. One suddenly said, "You wanted competition, so let's compete. The loser forfeits all demon hearts." Sun Yunliang clasped hands and bowed again. 7 tycoons, this fellow Taoist came to exchange a few hundred demon hearts. He spoke sharply, but give me face. Meng Hao sighed audibly, then walked around the blocking man. Wei Li followed as he headed toward the stairs. The cold smile twisted his mouth. Nobody saw it. He'd estimated the 7 would fall for his con. He was correct. By now, their probing convinced them Meng Hao's demon hearts couldn't match theirs. Sure enough, after walking down 6 stairs, 2 of the 7 flickered in front of him, blocking his way. Careless talk leads to trouble, one said. You proposed competition, so compete we will. Meng Hao's face looked unsightly. He stood silently grim, then turned back up the stairs. Sun Yunliang smiled bitterly and apologetically. Honor Guard Zhou's ridicule was obvious. Meng Hao gritted his teeth, looking ready to break, and said, "How do we compete?" One stepped forward, lofty. "I suffice alone," he said, lifting a bag of holding. Inside are 13,000 low-grade demon hearts. Fellow Taoist, how many do you have? He tossed the bag to Honor Guard Zhou, who accepted it and scanned with divine sense. He nodded and produced a stone slab for impartiality. 3 meters tall, carved with 9 dragons. When Zhou placed the bag on it, the first dragon glowed lifelike. The second was 30% lit. On the 9 dragons' demon heart scale, said Sun Yunliang, each dragon represents 10,000 low-grade demon hearts. He produced an identical slab for Meng Hao. The competing old man said loftily, "How many demon hearts do you have, fellow Taoist? Produce them so we can expand our knowledge." The 6 others smiled enigmatically, confident of the outcome. Honor Guard Zhou's smile grew radiant. He disliked Meng Hao from the start, and now ridicule was obvious. He couldn't wait to see Meng Hao's reaction. This chapter was sponsored by Sunil Patel, Abhishek Alluri, Byron Sego, and Justin Volpato. Chapter 668, It Feels Great. Wei Li looked over nervously at Meng Hao. She worried about what would happen if he lost. The price would be incredible. Meng Hao's face was expressionless as he pulled out a bag of holding and tossed it onto the 9 dragons' demon heart scale. As soon as the bag of holding touched its surface, one of the dragons carved onto the stone slab started glowing with a bright light. Everyone watched closely as the scene played out, especially the 7 old men. Their expressions flickered, then brightened with happiness. They weren't worried about losing. They worried Meng Hao's bag wouldn't hold many demon hearts. With 10,000, even split 7 ways, they'd profit handsomely. As smiles appeared on the 7's faces, Honor Guard Zhou's eyes widened with regret. He'd assumed Meng Hao would have a few hundred demon hearts at most, perhaps a few thousand. But he had 10,000. His regret vanished when he realized Meng Hao couldn't win. He would lose, and the 7 tycoons would gain more demon hearts. It was in this moment that the second dragon started to glow, until it was half-lit. That indicated that Meng Hao's bag of holding had 15,000 demon hearts in it. "You lose," he said immediately. Joy appeared on his face, though he struggled to suppress it. "Said who?" laughed the old man standing in front of him. "The competition is between you and the 7 of us. No one is allowed to interfere. One party must hand over all demon hearts to the other." The other 6 men nodded. The first old man stepped back, and a second stepped forward proudly. He produced a bag and tossed it onto the stone slab, looking contemptuously at Meng Hao. A buzzing sound echoed as the stone slab vibrated. The dragons almost seemed alive, pulsing with ripples. The second dragon now glowed completely, lifelike. The third dragon was fully lit as well. "A total of 30,000 demon hearts," said Honor Guard Zhou excitedly. "Do you have more?" asked the old man, looking at Meng Hao. The other 6 did the same. They imagined Meng Hao had a few more demon hearts but not many, and the competition would end tamely. Meng Hao's expression remained grim as he slowly reached into his robe and pulled out another bag. As soon as it landed on the slab, the third dragon lit completely, and 10% of the fourth glowed. Honor Guard Zhou gasped and looked at Meng Hao. 31,000. Sun Yunliang's eyes widened in disbelief. He laughed bitterly inwardly. If he'd known Meng Hao possessed so many demon hearts, he wouldn't have allowed this commotion. Even the 7 old men were shocked. Each possessed over 10,000 demon hearts, none exceeding 20,000. Yet their opponent had unexpectedly produced 30,000. They began to speculate about him. In moments, the 7 exchanged glances. Their eyes burned with passion as they realized how much more interested they were now. If they won against an opponent with demon hearts, each would gain ~5000. The thought made their hearts race. The 7 began to chuckle. The second old man stepped back, and the third walked forward, waving his hand. A bag flew out, and the fourth and fifth dragons lit up, though the fifth was only 90% lit. 49,000 low-grade demon hearts, said Honor Guard Zhou, who then looked over at Meng Hao. It wasn't just him. Everyone, including Wei Li, were now staring at Meng Hao. I refuse to believe that you can continue to compete, said the third old man, his voice cool. Meng Hao said nothing. He appeared to have an endless supply of bags in his robe. He produced another and tossed it out, causing the fourth, fifth, and sixth dragons to light completely. The bag held 30,000 demon hearts. Honor Guard Zhou's mind reeled. He stared blankly at the 6 glowing dragons on the slab. 60,000 demon hearts. The 7's faces flickered as they stared at Meng Hao. They exchanged glances and reached a consensus. This had to be the opponent's last bag. 60,000 demon hearts. No wonder he was so domineering. I never imagined he'd have so many demon hearts, but he can't match the 7 of us. The best would be if he had 70,000, then each of us would get 10,000. That's quite a profit. Even if he has someone powerful backing him, does he think he can fight all 7 of us together? The 7 old men chuckled as the fourth and fifth stepped forward together. They tossed out bags that blazed with blinding light as they landed. Not just the 6th dragon lit up. The 7th did too, and 50% of the 8th. 75,000 low-grade demon hearts, said Honor Guard Zhou, his amazed voice echoing about. The 5th old man laughed heartily. Fellow Taoist, however many low-grade demon hearts you have, bring them out. We'll keep up until the end. Pride and barely suppressed joy shone on his face. The others smiled complacently, imagining how they'd split Meng Hao's demon hearts. Meng Hao blinked and reached into his robe again. The 7 men's eyes narrowed as he produced another bag and tossed it onto the slab. A rumbling sound echoed out as the 7th and 8th dragons lit up. Only the 9th dragon remained dark. The 7 old men burst into hearty laughter. Even Honor Guard Zhou sighed with relief. Clearly Meng Hao had only 80,000 demon hearts, otherwise the 9th dragon would already glow. Sun Yunliang had long since begun to pant, his heart pounding. When he saw Honor Guard Zhou's expression, he wanted to slap the man. What an idiot! Someone with 80,000 demon hearts is not someone to provoke lightly. Perhaps he just didn't dare fight the 7 combined. But now we have this situation here in the Sun Soul Society. He won't give up. This farce is over, said the 6th old man. Fellow Taoist, it's time for me to teach you a lesson. Never forget there are always heavens beyond the heavens you know, and always people better than you. He didn't step forward, simply tossing out a bag. It landed on the slab with a bang, causing the 8th dragon to light completely, along with 70% of the 9th. 87,000 low-grade demon hearts, gasped Honor Guard Zhou. Meng Hao's brow furrowed as he felt around in his robe. He didn't produce another bag. He'd exhausted his supply of low-grade demon hearts. Wei Li's heart pounded when she saw his expression. Complete complacency covered the 7's faces. One stepped forward and reached toward the bags on the slab. Did I say you could touch those? Said Meng Hao. He waved his hand, sending a mild blast that pushed the old man back. His face darkened, and the other 6 stepped forward, displeasure clouding their faces. Being a sore loser, fellow Taoist? Asked one. Even if you are, it doesn't matter, said another. You must admit your defeat. You lost, so those demon hearts belong to us now. Meng Hao's expression was the same as ever. Then he smiled, a faint, bashful smile. The competition isn't over yet, so how could I have lost? The 7's hearts sank, and they exchanged flabbergasted looks. You have more low-grade demon hearts. Low-grade demon hearts. No, I'm out, replied Meng Hao. He slapped the bag at his side and another unexpectedly appeared, one of the special bags he'd purchased in Seahold. Hefting it, Meng Hao looked at the 9 Dragons Demon Heart Scale. Why don't we use something else? It would be a shame for an incredible treasure like this to be damaged. Hearing this, the 7 could only stare in shock at the bag in Meng Hao's hand. Then one old man sneered. The stone slab has 9 dragons, and they change color if the number exceeds 100,000. I've never heard of demon stones damaging a 9 dragons demon heart scale. Meng Hao looked at Sun Yunliang, who hesitated briefly before nodding. Very well then, said Meng Hao, tossing the bag over. When it landed, the boom echoed down to the first floor. The 9th dragon lit completely. Concentration etched their faces. The first dragon began to change color, turning blue. The 7's faces fell. In the second dragon, the 3rd, all 9 dragons turned blue. They changed color again, from the 1st to the 9th, until all glittered with bright violet light. The 7 trembled, shock and disbelief covering their faces. A few said, impossible. But the changes didn't stop with violet light. Once more the dragons changed color, this time to orange. Orange light, that's orange light. Their minds reeled as if struck by lightning. They shook, eyes blank with astonishment. But the light wasn't finished changing. Once again it transformed, for the 5th time, the dragons turning blood red one by one. The color changes left everyone utterly shocked. They stared with wide mouths as the 9 dragons turned completely blood red. And then, the 9 dragons flickered brightly, as if about to change color again. But the scale had reached its limit. The color wouldn't change. A rumbling sound filled the building and echoed outside. The scale itself crackled and before everyone's eyes, completely disintegrated. Meng Hao cleared his throat, looking at the shocked faces around him. Being rich felt great. This chapter was sponsored by Addit Mara. Chapter 669, You Cheated. As the stone slab exploded, Saint Sun's soul opened his eyes in his tower. He sent his divine sense down into the city, immediately locking onto Meng Hao's location. After examining the situation, his face twitched again. Trying to compete in demon hearts with him, those 7 are courting death. He mustn't be given any opportunity to flip out. If he seizes the moral high ground, he'll cause a crisis to develop. Saint Sun's soul looked at the bottle gourd off to the side and felt a headache coming. When he thought about the alcohol inside, his face darkened. He flicked his right sleeve, and immediately, a person approached from outside the tower. Once inside, he immediately dropped to his knees and kowtowed. Greetings, master. A middle-aged man in a long violet gown stood there with veneration in his expression and energy sparkling in his eyes. His cultivation base was at the great circle of the nascent soul stage, not far from spirit severing. Go to the Sex Demon Heart Exchange Pavilion, said Saint Sun's soul coolly. There's a man there I want you to invite here. Remember to be extremely courteous. Treat him as politely as you treat me. The middle-aged man immediately nodded, but the fact that his master spoke no more caused him to pause for a moment. Master, what is name of this respected member of the senior generation? Just go, you'll recognize him. Saint Sun's soul didn't appear to want to discuss the matter further. The middle-aged man stood up, perplexed, and left the tower. On the 2nd floor of the Sun Soul Society's Demon Heart Exchange shop, Meng Hao stood with hands clasped behind his back, looking down at the shattered slab. The old men stood dumbstruck, completely speechless. They were struck completely senseless, their minds filled with crashing waves, as if about to shred. Then they began to calculate. Changing colors once indicates a complete doubling in the number of demon hearts. In total, there were 6 color changes, 6 times the amount before. Before, there were 80,000 demon hearts. Surely his bag doesn't have 500,000. If he exchanged 500,000 demon hearts for spirit stones, that would be over 300 million. Their minds roared as they stared at Meng Hao, terrified. No way. The 9 Dragons Demon Heart Scale does indeed have a limitation. According to the standard of low-grade demon hearts, it's supposedly able to accommodate 1,506,000 wouldn't cause it to shatter. Something's going on here. The old men gasped and looked over fixedly at Meng Hao. Before they could figure it out, Honor Guard Zhou and Sun Yunliang also realized something was off. The eyes of 9 people turned red. As of now, the expressions of the 7 old men were that of complete exasperation as they finally considered the possibility of losing. You cheated, they roared, their voices hoarse. If they lost, the demon hearts would become Meng Hao's. A vast sum they couldn't accept since these weren't their own, but the property of their sects and clans. You definitely cheated. The scale can accommodate 1 million low-grade demon hearts. Your bag doesn't have more than 900,000. I don't know how you did it, but it's definitely not fair. Such actions deserve death. The killing intent in the old men immediately grew more obvious. Do you dare to compete one more time? Take the demon hearts out and we can compare directly. If you don't, it proves you cheated. Behaving treacherously like this means you won't leave alive. The 7 old men strode forward domineeringly, their cultivation bases unleashed into an intangible tempest spreading outward. Wei Li's face was pale. Without Meng Hao's protection, she would have collapsed. The old man suddenly produced another bag and tossed it onto the slab. The 9 dragons flickered, and a blue light appeared, but only half the first dragon turned blue. 98,000 low-grade demon hearts. This is all the demon hearts I possess. Do you dare to gamble again? Honor Guard Zhou and Sun Yunliang stood aside silently. Even Zhou didn't react. He wanted no part of this. Meng Hao coldly looked at the 7 and waved his hand. All his bags flew from the rubble. The old men roared and rushed toward him. Before they reached him, Meng Hao opened a bag and expressionlessly removed a demon heart emanating bright colors and dense spiritual energy. He waved his sleeve, causing it to fly to Sun Yunliang. "Elder son, would you mind appraising that for me?" he said coolly. The 7 stopped and looked at the demon heart. Their faces fell. Based on its spiritual energy, color, and size, they could tell immediately. "Mid-grade demon heart," Sun Yunliang gasped. His words crushed any last hope the 7 had. Sun Yunliang took a deep breath and gazed at the demon heart. His face flickered, then he stared at Meng Hao's bag. The 7 did the same, speculating inwardly, their faces growing more unsightly. "Mid-grade demon hearts don't fluctuate in price," said Sun Yunliang. "A single one is worth 10,000 spirit stones or 10 low-grade demon hearts. Of course, the reverse doesn't work." He looked at Meng Hao. "Fellow Taoist, how many mid-grade demon hearts do you possess?" Meng Hao didn't respond. He waved his sleeve, causing a crystalline waterfall to spill from his bag. The entire area filled with dense spiritual energy. The second floor became a land of immortals. 10,000 mid-grade demon hearts piled up. Everyone present panted, their minds shaking. 10,000 mid-grade demon hearts. That equals 100,000 low-grade demon hearts. They trade for 100 million spirit stones. Sun Yunliang struggled to maintain composure. Honor Guard Zhou's vision dimmed. He almost passed out. How could the man he scorned so openly have so many mid-grade demon hearts? The 7 old men trembled and looked as if they'd aged 10 years. "There is no need to directly compare," said Sun Yunliang, looking over at Meng Hao. He clasped his hands and bowed courteously. "Fellow Taoist, you are the victor." Wei Li stood behind Meng Hao, her mind reeling. She knew Meng Hao was rich, but she had never imagined that he would be this rich. Meng Hao lifted his hand, collecting the 7 bags. The old men watched with red eyes, their killing intent intense. But seeing him take the bags without hesitation, they were torn between rage and despair. "Hold on a minute. Fellow Taoist, you certainly do possess more demon hearts than us. However, you still haven't explained the matter of the cheating earlier. Even if you do have 10,000 mid-grade demon hearts, that's still not enough to destroy the 9 dragons demon heart scale. You cheated, which means the bet doesn't stand. We refuse to accept this." Of course, the 7 old men were now resorting to sophistry, and they knew it. However, what else could they do? There was no way they could simply allow Meng Hao to take away their demon hearts. "Then I'll have to make you accept it," said Meng Hao. He waved his hand, causing 20,000 more mid-grade demon hearts to fly out. They piled everywhere, nearly filling the floor. The 7's eyes widened as Meng Hao sent high-grade demon hearts flying out. Their splendor instantly captivated all eyes. The spiritual energy transformed into a pillar-like aura shooting into the air above Seahold. Wild colors flashed, and the wind roiled. Every cultivator in Seahold instantly looked over in stupefaction. The buzz of conversation instantly rose up from all areas of Seahold. Sun Yunliang stared with slack jaw at the high-grade demon hearts. He picked one up and examined it closely. "This is a high-grade demon heart." Such items were treasures, rarely seen. A single one would be auctioned, and he'd only seen less than 100 in all his years. The starting price for high-grade demon hearts is 500,000 spirit stones. They exchange for 50 mid-grade demon hearts or 500 low-grade demon hearts. With 10,000 here, they're worth 5 billion. Honor Guard Joe's vision now went completely dark. The 7 old men were deathly pale, their minds roaring. How could they have gambled with someone so enigmatic? They, with demon hearts worth a few dozen million spirit stones, were betting about wealth, with someone worth 5 billion. Meng Hao cleared his throat and waved his hand. All demon hearts flew back into his bag, including the roughly 100,000 of the 7. The old men lifted their heads and roared, their eyes red as they charged with full power. Meng Hao's expression suddenly turned cold. "Screw off." 2 words struck like lightning. Blood sprayed from their mouths. They tumbled backward before even reaching Meng Hao. Coughing blood, astonishment and fear filled their faces. Spirit severing. Their faces drained of blood as they trembled violently. Honor Guard Joe finally passed out, collapsing. Sun Yunliang gasped and stepped forward, bowing with clasped hands. "Junior offers greetings, Senior." Chapter 670, Crisis Approaches. Right in the middle of Seahold, Meng Hao unleashed his aura. The 7 old men scattered backward, blood spraying from their mouths. In that same moment, a jagged black cloud filled with crackling lightning flew through the air in the 4th ring, right outside the flying immortal sect. The cloud dissipated to reveal an old man in a long black robe. His features were ancient, time seeming to circulate around him. He hovered in midair, looking down at the sea with an abstruse light glimmering in his eyes. If Meng Hao were here, he would recognize him immediately. This old man was none other than the 10th Wang clan patriarch. "No more delays," he said coolly. "This time I'll wrest away his Dao foundation. If this clone is defeated, I'll lock the location and come here with my true self via greater teleportation. Even if the immortality bestowed Deus notices, I will achieve my aim." A sharp gleam appeared in his eyes, containing both determination and a desire to slaughter. "There are no traces of him in the 4th ring. Before coming here, none of my auguries could clue me to his position, yet I was able to determine he's still in the Milky Way Sea. If he's neither in the 4th ring nor the outer sea, then that means he must be in the 3rd ring. The 3rd ring is a forbidden zone for Dao seeking." He frowned, then suddenly flew directly down toward the flying immortal sect. He remained inside only the time it took an incense stick to burn. After he flew out, the entire flying immortal sect burst into activity. Saint Flying Immortal had issued orders. More than half of the Flying Immortal sect disciples flew toward the Flying Immortal sect Sea City in the 3rd ring. Tens of thousands of disciples soared through the air, each one of them clutching a jade slip that contained an image of Meng Hao, along with a bit of the 10th Wang clan patriarch's divine sense. As the Flying Immortal sect disciples entered the Flying Immortal sect Sea City, the 3rd ring entrance records were checked. No traces were found of Meng Hao. The Flying Immortal sect unleashed all its power and ships to travel through the Stormwind Divide toward the 3rd ring. Meanwhile, the 10th Wang clan patriarch visited the Sea Divinity sect. Though what he promised was unclear when he left, Saint Sea Divinity issued orders. Tens of thousands of Sea Divinity sect disciples burst into action, transforming into sword auras toward the Sea Divinity sect Sea City, jade slips in hand. After the 3rd ring entry records were checked, they began entering the 3rd ring, like the Flying Immortal sect disciples. Even Saint Flying Immortal and Saint Sea Divinity, 2 spirit-severing experts, joined the forces who left the sect and entered the Stormwind Divide. 2 of the 3 great sects were driven into action by the 10th Wang clan patriarch. However, because Saint Sun's soul was stationed in the 3 sects Seahold in the 3rd ring, no agreement could be reached. Though the 10th Wang clan patriarch checked their records, no forces were mobilized. After a moment's thought, a gleam of insight appeared in the 10th Wang clan patriarch's eyes. "This kid is cunning, yet the lack of records makes it more likely he's in the 3rd ring." He left the Sun Soul Society's headquarters and then entered the Stormwind Divide. "I've already flung out an inescapable dragnet into the 3rd ring. I can't believe that Meng Hao will disappear under the noses of tens of thousands of disciples from 2 sects. Saint Flying Immortal and Saint Sea Divinity have promised to enter the 3rd ring. Their cultivation bases are ordinary, but with their sect's legacy treasures, they are forces not to be trifled with. Nobody understands the 3rd ring better than them. Meng Hao, if you can escape them, then I'll admit your superiority. It won't just be them looking for you either. I'm confident that I can win over the Sun Soul Society. Then, 100,000 disciples from 3 different sects will be looking for a single you. And as if that weren't enough, I've also posted a handsome bounty. When the time comes, all the cultivators in the 3rd ring will be my eyes and ears." If one person tracks you down, I will know. The 10th Wang clan patriarch strode through the Stormwind Divide, black mist spreading before him, opening a path. Nothing dared stand in his way. This time I must succeed. Too much time has passed, and the Jai clan grows suspicious. The 10th Wang clan patriarch's face was grim. How could a trifling junior cultivator prove so troublesome and defeat him twice? As tens of thousands of flying immortal sect and sea divinity sect disciples flew into the Stormwind Divide, in the Third Ring Sun Soul Society Demon Heart Exchange Pavilion, Meng Hao made a grasping motion that sent all the demon hearts into his bag of holding. The 7 old men were silent as cicadas in winter, faces pale. They dared not hinder Meng Hao. Pain filled them utterly. Sun Yunliang panted, eyes burning with passion. "Senior, if you wish to exchange those demon hearts, rest assured the sect will give you a satisfactory price." He knew that handling the exchange would count as incredible meritorious service. Such meritorious service might even prompt a personal reaction from Saint Sun Soul, and could potentially affect his cultivation base. He might even have a chance to enter the spirit-severing stage. Even if he couldn't, he would definitely become famous within the sect. "Can your Sun Soul Society alone handle this many demon hearts?" asked Meng Hao, looking at him. Sun Yunliang gaped, then calculated. His face darkened as he realized that even with all the Sun Soul Society's resources, exchanging spirit stones for so many demon hearts would be difficult. In his hesitation, a bright beam of light flew toward the pavilion. Saint Sun Soul's apprentice flashed into view via minor teleportation on the second floor. He saw the 7 ashen-faced old men, then his gaze fell on Meng Hao. One glance told him this was the senior his master had mentioned. After a sharp intake of breath, the middle-aged man clasped hands and bowed. "I am Han Feng of the junior generation. Greetings, senior. I come on orders from my master to invite you to have a chat with him." As soon as the man arrived, Sun Yunliang's face flickered and he clasped hands in greetings. When the 7 old men saw him, looks of awe appeared on their faces and they also bowed. Meng Hao looked at the middle-aged man, and his eyes narrowed slightly. Then he turned his head to look at the tower that rose up in the middle of Seahold. "Your master is Saint Sun Soul?" he asked coolly. "My master is indeed Saint Sun Soul," replied the man, his tone respectful. Meng Hao looked at Sun Yunliang. "I'll be with Saint Sun Soul. Get the spirit stone situation sorted, then find me. How many demon hearts I give you depends on how many spirit stones you can offer." Saint Sun Soul's apprentice gaped, and Wei Li stood nervously. Sun Yunliang immediately sent a message. He didn't provide specific details. He just related the information about how many demon hearts Meng Hao had. The apprentice's eyes went wide and he gasped. Now he understood why his master had sent him. How could he possibly have so many demon hearts, he thought. With renewed reverence, he escorted Meng Hao toward the tower. Wei Li was with them, growing more nervous as they approached. In the time she'd followed Meng Hao, she'd seen more incredible things than in her whole life. The demon heart scene especially seemed to stop her heart. She'd known Meng Hao was rich, but never imagined he was that rich. Perhaps his wealth couldn't compare to that of an entire country, but it was no exaggeration that it could rival a great sect. The 3 reached the tower. Meng Hao turned to Wei Li. The apprentice clasped hands and bowed. "Senior, don't worry. I of the junior generation will arrange accommodations for this fellow Taoist." Meng Hao nodded. Seeing that Wei Li did not object, he turned and flew directly toward the top level of the tower, vanishing in the blink of an eye. He reappeared inside the tower. Black-robed Saint Sun Soul sat cross-legged behind a wide table, expressionless. Next to him was his elegant wife, who was sniffing a flagon of alcohol. She looked at Meng Hao and smiled warmly. "You offered me some alcohol," said Saint Sun Soul. "Now I'd like to offer you some in return." Even as he spoke, his wife brought the alcohol flagon over. She then produced 2 glasses, into which she distributed the alcohol. After that, she sat down next to Saint Sun Soul and looked over curiously at Meng Hao. Meng Hao said nothing as he sat down directly across from Saint Sun Soul. He picked up the glass of alcohol, looked it over, then drank it in one mouthful. When the alcohol entered his mouth, it felt freezing cold, and made his entire body feel as if it were being frozen. It even seemed as if the alcohol were about to extinguish the flame of his life force. The coldness spread through his chi passageways and body. His cultivation base froze instantly. His divine sense slowed, and he nearly slipped into slumber. Thought became difficult. Frost appeared on his skin. The alcohol seemed poised to turn him into an ice statue. This would surely kill any ordinary spirit-severing cultivator. Yet Meng Hao's fleshly body was far too powerful. Though his cultivation base and divine sense froze, his body vibrated. Thousands of vibrations occurred in moments, their frequency accorded with some great Tao. Within 10 breaths, white steam rose from his head, filling the tower's top level and cracking the frosted walls. A serious expression appeared in the eyes of the elegant woman, and although Saint Sun Soul's face was expressionless, his eyes were cold as he stared at Meng Hao. Your alcohol isn't very strong, not as strong as mine. Meng Hao slapped his bag of holding and produced Han Shan's bronze alcohol flagon. He filled a glass and slid it to Saint Sun Soul. Please be my guest, he said coolly. Saint Sun Soul's face twitched as he looked at the glass. He hesitated, something he rarely did. This chapter was sponsored by Vongher, Yanwar Yapatra, Michael Mikulczyk, Panusit Chamanan, David Howe, Nikita Believ, and Adi Nagraha Tawakal. Chapter 671, Cooperation. After a few breaths, determination filled Saint Sun Soul's eyes. He lifted the glass and tossed it down his throat. His body shook, veins bulging on his face. A pained expression appeared, but he endured, raising his hand to circulate his cultivation base. His wife's face flickered. She nearly rose when Saint Sun Soul stopped her with a look. He panted for 10 breaths, then pointed with his right index finger. A blue aura filled with intense sharpness shot through the tower's wall, and a monstrous sword chi sped over the horizon. Saint Sun Soul breathed deeply, face pale. He looked at Meng Hao. Does everyone in your hometown drink this type of alcohol? Meng Hao lifted the bronze flagon and drank deeply, staring Saint Sun Soul in the eye. Saint Sun Soul's face twitched. Meng Hao had no reaction to the alcohol. He took another drink. Saint Sun Soul sighed. In all the years I've practiced cultivation, this is the first time someone has ever threatened me with some alcohol. How could treating you to some alcohol be a threat? Asked Meng Hao, sounding a bit hurt. In my hometown, everyone really does drink this. It's just that when I left, I was in a bit of a hurry, so I didn't bring very much with me. Next time, I'll make sure to bring you a bit more. Saint Sun Soul sat quietly. The sword chi in the alcohol was strong. Moments ago, it had rocked him both physically and mentally. Yet Meng Hao drank it without reaction. Meng Hao was even more mysterious than he'd seemed. He attracts sea demons to madness, has strange sword alcohol and a shocking fleshly body, and cancelled my freezing chi. And he's a time cultivator. Why is he here? He lifted the glass of freezing alcohol and drank. Why don't you exchange your demon hearts with the Sun Soul Society? The exchange rate won't be incredibly high, but neither will it be very low. Meng Hao looked back silently at Saint Sun Soul for a moment. Then he asked, why do the 3 sects value demon hearts so much? Generally that's a secret, replied Saint Sun Soul coolly. Yet given your cultivation base, you'll figure it out eventually. The 3 sects' history goes far back, he continued. How far, I'm unsure. I only know the first patriarchs jointly summoned the Stormwind Divide. After that, this area was sealed until now. Whether those patriarchs live or are dead, none know. Yet they left a legacy treasure requiring demon hearts to sustain it. Also, the 3 sects' cultivation techniques differ from outsiders. To us, spirit stones are only moderately effective. Demon hearts are another matter. Furthermore, and most importantly, every rotation of the great spell formation that protects the 3 sects requires a shocking amount of demon hearts. Without the demon hearts, it can't be operated. Having heard all of this, Meng Hao chuckled a bit. I suppose there is another reason, isn't there? Yes, but I can't tell you, replied Saint Sun Soul, staring at Meng Hao. It has something to do with the Yellow Springs underworld ship in the Stormwind Divide, said Meng Hao, smiling and eyes glittering. Saint Sun Soul looked back expressionlessly. There's no need to probe. That's a secret which cannot be told to outsiders. Yet you know of the Yellow Springs underworld ship. That's unexpected. Inwardly, Saint Sun Soul was shocked. Yet again, he found himself in awe. A jade slip suddenly glowed inside Saint Sun Soul's bag. He took it out, looked it over, and placed it on the table. If you won't tell me, forget it, said Meng Hao, abandoning his probe. As for the demon hearts, give me enough spirit stones and I'll exchange them. He pulled out a bag of holding, loosened it, and placed it on the table. Glancing at the jade slip on the table in front of Saint Sun Soul, Meng Hao smiled and said, You most likely know exactly how many demon hearts are inside. Name a price. 5 billion low-grade spirit stones, replied Saint Sun Soul. He waved his hand, causing a ring to fly out which Meng Hao then snatched. He scanned it with divine sense. The ring's interior was densely packed with spirit stones. They were not low-grade nor even mid-grade. No, all were high-grade spirit stones. Meng Hao's pupils constricted. Even great sects would struggle to accumulate so many high-grade spirit stones. Yet Saint Sun's soul was cavalier about it. Meng Hao thought how this cold-faced man was the truly rich one. Yet he couldn't fathom why the Sun's Soul Society had so many spirit stones. His eyes flickered as all of a sudden, he thought about demon hearts. Could it be that there is something about the demon hearts themselves that caused the Sun Soul Society to be so rich, he thought. Our transaction is complete, you can leave now. Saint Sun's soul closed his eyes as if looking at Meng Hao annoyed him. Meng Hao smiled and stood, clutching the ring. After 2 steps he stopped and looked back. Considering how many spirit stones your Sun Soul Society has, he said, perhaps you would be interested in forming a cooperation. Saint Sun's soul opened his eyes and looked at Meng Hao. What sort of cooperation? We join forces to kill sea demons. I'll draw them out. Saint Sun's soul's eyes glittered, and after a moment of silence he said, what's the split? For every 10 we acquire you keep 9 and I keep 1. When exchanging demon hearts for spirit stones, I'll give you a 10% discount. 1. Just to forestall any questions, Meng Hao's offer is translated correctly. He gives Saint Sun's soul 9 for every 1 that he gets. 50%, retorted Saint Sun's soul. No way, said Meng Hao, shaking his head. It's not easy attracting sea demons, that's my responsibility. With your help things go faster. Also, the 3rd ring belongs to your 3 sects. Without that, I'd do it myself. So you do know what it means to be in the 3rd ring, shot back Saint Sun's soul. They negotiated terms. Saint Sun's soul's wife covered her smile, watching. She hadn't heard him speak so much in years. She understood him. He seemed cold but viewed approved people as close friends. Those he didn't approve of, however powerful, heard only 3 sentences from him. Though they didn't seem to get along, she saw they admired each other. Meng Hao slapped the table, sending the jade slip flying. Listen, swindler, I've gone easy on you. Don't make me serious. You've tasted my alcohol, 50% won't happen. Saint Sun's soul snorted coldly. For hundreds of years, the saints control everything in the 3rd ring. Will you kill any demons without my permission? They faced off angrily. Saint Sun's soul's wife rose, smiling, and refilled their glasses. No need for this. Back down a bit, settle on 30% instead of 50 or 10. Meng Hao nodded. Fine, 30%. In the 3rd ring, without trump cards, he wasn't a match for Saint Sun's soul. Meng Hao thought how annoying it was to earn spirit stones only to be interfered with. Saint Sun's soul hesitated, then nodded. Meng Hao rose to his feet. All right, swindler. Since we're in agreement, then we'll head out in a few days. I'm a saint and my name is Lin Tao, said Saint Sun's soul through gritted teeth. Thanks for telling me, swindler, replied Meng Hao, flicking his sleeve and preparing to leave. It was at this point that Saint Sun's soul's eyes flickered, and he suddenly swept his sleeve across the jade slip sitting on the table, sending it flying toward Meng Hao. Meng Hao turned and grabbed it, then looked at Saint Sun's soul. Saint Flying Immortal and Saint Sea Divinity sent news. Take a look. He drank, then closed his eyes. Meng Hao sent divine sense into the jade slip. After reading the information, a tremor ran through him. Saint Flying Immortal and Saint Sea Divinity were on their way with 70,000 disciples. In addition to that information, there was also a picture of Meng Hao, as well as a message to Saint Sun's soul, inviting him to join in the search. Finally, there was a message indicating that the 10th Wang clan patriarch was coming personally to meet with Saint Sun's soul to explain the rewards he would receive for participating in the search. Meng Hao tossed the jade slip back. It hovered before Saint Sun's soul. Saint Sun's soul took and put it away, then coolly said, Han Feng. As soon as the words left his mouth, Han Feng teleported into the room to stand in front of Saint Sun's soul. He clasped hands and bowed. Saint Sun's soul said calmly, Go erase any information about Master's friend in Seahold. However many saw him, eliminate it all. Spare no cost. That includes people who have left the city in the past few days. Clean it all up. Han Feng gaped, bowed, and voiced assent. He glanced at Meng Hao and left. Meng Hao's eyes glittered as he watched these things happen, but he didn't speak. Saint Flying Immortal and Saint Sea Divinity are passing through the Stormwind Divide. Given the speed they can attain, it will take them 2 months to get here. As for that 10th Wang clan patriarch, even if he does have a Tao-seeking cultivation base, it will also take him about 2 months. I'll agree with the other saints and the 10th Wang clan patriarch. That way, traces of your passage will be harder to find in my territory. Meng Hao clasped hands and bowed. "Many thanks." "I'm not helping you, I'm helping our business," replied Saint Sun Soul coolly. Then he cleared his throat and looked at Meng Hao. 80% discount. Meng Hao gritted his teeth and glared at beaming Saint Sun Soul. 40%, that's all you get. Please email typos and mistakes to email protected. /expand. A short while later, Meng Hao left the tower face grim. He'd been conned, they'd agreed to 50%. Meng Hao felt he conned others. Rarely did they con him. He never imagined being conned by such a solemn swindler. The matter left him exasperated. "That swindler conned me," sighed Meng Hao. Saint Sun Soul's apprentice led him to a private villa, not the city. Saint Sun Soul had arranged this. Staying in the private district kept contact with outsiders minimal, making it easier to erase traces of his presence. Wei Li didn't dare speak. Every time she looked, his expression changed, gritted teeth, sighs, indescribable pain. What's wrong? She thought. What she didn't know was that spirit stones had become his life. Reducing the spirit stones he'd earned was like a knife through his heart. After Meng Hao left, Saint Sun Soul Lin Tao chuckled complacently. Happy, he raised the glass and drank deeply. His wife shook her head, also happy, not because her husband had taken advantage, but because friendship was developing between them. Her husband had never had any friends, and she could sense how happy he actually was. Later that night, Meng Hao sat cross-legged, contemplating. He still felt pain. The reversal from con man to con left him sighing repeatedly. Wang clan patriarch, you bastard. Meng Hao considered himself reasonable. He concluded the 10th Wang clan patriarch was responsible. Meng Hao gritted his teeth and probed his cultivation base. 3 portions remained, fusing together. The more progress I make, the slower it goes, he thought, retracting his divine sense. This was his path to spirit severing. Eventually the 3 portions would become 2 and finally 1. When that happened, he would be able to enter spirit severing. I wonder what I will sever for the first severing. He was a bit hesitant about this point. Despite having thought about the matter quite a bit recently, he still hadn't received any sort of enlightenment. The entire matter was still somewhat blurry to him. Lost in thought, he took out the ring and looked at the spirit stones. Their glitter made him feel better. That bastard Wang clan patriarch isn't dead and's working hard to track me. He thinks he'll take my Tao foundation. A cold glint appeared in Meng Hao's eyes. He took out the wooden time sword and copper mirror and began making copies with more time sealing marks. Just wait until I get 100 wooden time swords. They'll make a huge formation that will give me the power to defend against even the Tao-seeking stage, at least to some extent. With spirit stones replenished, Meng Hao immersed himself in duplication. More wooden time swords accumulated gradually. Several days later, he produced the 100th copy. All 100 swords contained 8 60-year cycles of time power. Time was running out. His meeting with Saint Sun Soul was at dawn. He glanced at the 100 wooden time swords, eyes glittering. Then he gritted his teeth and examined his remaining spirit stones. Spirit stones are very, very, very important. However, if I die, they'll end up belonging to someone else. His eyes flickered, and he took out the time sword tip. He stared at it for a moment, and then began to breathe heavily. I don't need many copies of this sword tip, only 10. Then, I can create the first form of the lotus sword formation. The power of such a sword formation would be equivalent to 100,000 years of time. He looked at the sword tip, and then the ring of holding. Finally, he began to work with the copper mirror. Before duplicating the sword tip, he prepared himself mentally. Once started, he couldn't stop. Spirit stones poured into the copper mirror. 10 spirit stones, 100 spirit stones, 1,000 spirit stones. Meng Hao moved woodenly, watching his spirit stones diminish. 2 hours later, the copper mirror blazed with light. His eyes burned as the mirror's surface turned watery, and 2 identical sword tips appeared. Meng Hao was panting as he picked them up. Then, he raised his head and started to laugh. The power of time within both sword tips was completely identical. But even as he laughed, calculating his spirit stone cost, sharp pain stabbed through his heart. I actually spent 1 billion. Damn it, it's ridiculously expensive, pain filled him. Wang clan patriarch, you bastard, things aren't over between us. His eyes were red, deep pain transforming into rage toward the 10th Wang clan patriarch. Gritting his teeth, he began another duplicate. With his 5 billion spirit stones, Meng Hao only copied 4 times sword tips. Including the original, he had 5. He used his remaining spirit stones to duplicate medicinal pills, wooden time swords, and other objects. He was fully equipped for battle, yet his bag and ring were empty. Though morning sun shone brightly, everything seemed dark to Meng Hao. The night before, he'd been unbelievably wealthy. Morning came and he was broke. All he could do was smile bitterly. Maybe I'm not destined to be rich. Spirit stones are just for copying magical items. If I cultivated the 9 heavens treasured body seal, which absorbs magical items, spirit stone wastage would be endless, he sighed. This Taoist magic from the demon immortal pagoda tempered his fleshly body. Even in the ancient demon immortal sect, it was a famous Tao, ranking below fleshly sanctification only because the latter was a secret art. The 9 heavens treasured body seal required constant cultivation, and the technique wasn't difficult. But the resource wastage was beyond most sects' means. The combination of both the Taoist magic and the secret art could be used to temper the body to an ultimate level. It was only by combining them that their true power could explode out. Fleshly sanctification is a secret art with other functions. My cultivation base is insufficient to invoke them. Cultivating the 9 heavens treasured body seal is a shortcut to improve my body. For others, too difficult. With enough spirit stones, I can duplicate endless magical items and cultivate indefinitely. Meng Hao sighed. He hadn't begun because of enlightenment and, more importantly, poverty. Spirit stones, I need spirit stones. 1. I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, but this line is an exact repeat of what he said in Chapter 7. In fact, it was the title of the chapter. Meng Hao's eyes were red, his thirst for spirit stones reaching a peak. Radiating a somber aura, he flew out. When Saint Sun's soul arrived and saw Meng Hao, he was astonished. "Who pissed you off?" he asked. Meng Hao said nothing. The somber air grew stronger. His body flashed as he flew off. Saint Sun's soul followed, perplexed. They moved at top speed and vanished from Seahold in moments. When they were quite some distance away from Seahold, Meng Hao stopped in midair and then glanced down at the sea. "All right, swindler, are you ready?" he said, looking over at Saint Sun's soul. "You have no respect," replied Saint Sun's soul, frowning. "Stop wasting time, let's start." Meng Hao took a deep breath and suppressed his cultivation base. The resurrection lily, more active after meeting the dawn immortal, appeared at the first opening. When the aura appeared, Saint Sun's soul's eyes flickered and he backed up. He looked at Meng Hao suspiciously. "That aura," he thought, "it's similar to that of the sea devils. However, he's clearly a cultivator." It was in that moment that the sea suddenly began to churn, and great waves began to roll across the various sea districts of the third ring. One sea demon after another trembled, then began to head toward Meng Hao, eyes red. In half an incense stick's time, hundreds of sea demons closed in. It's not a sea devil aura, he thought. Something was different. If a sea devil aura appeared, most would capitulate. But they attacked him as archenemies, wanting to devour him even at cost. Rumble! Hundreds of sea demons burst out of the water to savagely attack Meng Hao. He snorted coldly and raised his right hand. 10,000 magical symbols swept the area. As booms rang out, thousands more appeared in the distance. "Not very many," mocked Saint Sun's soul. Meng Hao sank to the sea bottom and spread the resurrection lily's aura further. The sea trembled as if ablaze. Countless sea demons burned their life forces for speed toward the aura. Tens of thousands appeared, then hundreds of thousands beyond, causing towering waves. In addition, there were 7 or 8 especially shocking roars that echoed out from over the horizon. Saint Sun's soul's face flickered as he sank into the water. Meng Hao was surrounded by 100 wooden swords in 10 lotus-shaped formations. As they swirled, each flower was a petal, forming an enormous lotus-shaped spell formation. The formation swept 300 meters, withering any close sea demons, as if they'd passed through an entire lifetime in moments. In fact, even the water in the area seemed to show signs of wastage. Apparently, there was nothing that could escape the power of time. The scene caused Saint Sun's soul's heart to tremble. This chapter was sponsored by /expand. 10 swords constitute a lotus, thought Saint Sun's soul. 10 lotuses constitute a formation. 100 swords and an enormous formation, all filled with the power of time. When the power ripples out, nothing remains unwithered. Most intriguing is each sword flower contains thousands of variations. When 10 lotuses form the massive formation, variations increase exponentially, tens of thousands hidden within. Such a formation requires shocking divine sense control, but that's secondary. Most importantly, it needs physical form and internal spirit. His has both. Saint Sun's soul's mind trembled. His high opinion of Meng Hao shattered as he realized he'd underestimated him. So, it turns out that he was actually only using a portion of his power in our initial fight. If he used this sword formation, then even I would have a hard time extricating myself from it. Time cultivators are rare, but he's more shocking than expected. And that alcohol, 80% chance it's from his hometown. The only problem is not knowing where. Saint Sun's soul was inwardly shaken. Hundreds of thousands of sea demons rushed toward them now. In the blink of an eye, the sea was completely thrown into chaos. Roaring sounds echoed out as Meng Hao's sword formation rotated at an incredible speed. Meng Hao calculated demon hearts gained with each kill. Seeing Saint Sun's soul in a daze, he got annoyed. "Hey, swindler, move soon or lose your 30%. Saint Sun's soul snorted and waved his right hand. 100,000 magical symbols flew from his sleeve, swirling into 10 magical symbol beasts. They roared and charged into the sea demons. Working together, Meng Hao and Saint Sun's soul killed rapidly. Without the resurrection lily stimulus, killing so many would be impossible. The sea demons had lost all reason, filled with madness. Blood dyed the sea red as the slaughter continued for approximately an hour, when suddenly 4 earth-shattering roars echoed out from the surrounding area. It was at that point when, shockingly, 4 enormous sea demons with white-bone lilies on them approached, one from each direction. One of the 4 sea demons was a huge jellyfish. Of the other 3, one was a gigantic violet sea turtle, and the other 2 were sea dragons that looked completely identical. As they neared, huge waves rolled out across the sea as the aura of spirit severing rippled out. "To each," Meng Hao said quickly. "A competition, if I win 10% discount, if you win 40%, agreed." Saint Sun's soul blinked, never having met someone so shameless. He refused and waved his sleeve. 2 illusory glowing swords appeared, scraping to create ghost images. Hundreds of swords rained toward the sea dragons. Meng Hao said nothing more. He turned and performed an incantation gesture. 5 times sword tips flew at the violet sea turtle. The time sword formation vanished and reappeared around the jellyfish. Meng Hao was located in the middle of the 2 formations, surrounded by a tempest of 10,000 magical symbols. "Attack!" The 5 times sword tips circulated and emitted shocking time power. The sea turtle howled, its white-bone lily swaying, about to rush, but when time power struck, it shuddered and recoiled. Without hesitation, it retracted into its shell to defend. Unfortunately, nothing can remain unwithered under the power of time. 5 sword tips emanated time power exceeding 100,000 years. The giant sea turtle's body withered rapidly. A blood-curdling shriek, then a boom. The spirit-severing sea turtle turned to ash. The speed and savagery of the kill caused even Meng Hao to suddenly focus in concentration. His eyes gleamed with a brilliant light. My spirit stones were not spent in vain, he thought. At the same time, the jellyfish was trapped in the lotus sword formation. It struggled, but its body was beginning to wither. After the space of about 10 breaths, a bang could be heard as the sword formation transformed it into nothing more than ash drifting about in the seawater. Saint Sun's soul had only killed 1 sea dragon. He looked and saw Meng Hao's time treasure's impressive power. His pupils constricted. Meng Hao was even more enigmatic. Time passed. Several hours later, they were still surrounded by densely packed groups of sea demons, who charged at them one after another. The seawater was stained red. Even Saint Sun's soul was shocked at the level of carnage. As they killed on, his excitement grew. He summoned the 3 swords of Seahold. They left only death in their wake. Meng Hao stood maintaining the sword formation and magical symbols. Saint Sun's soul was in a frenzy, slaughtering like a different person, flying back and forth, crying out at top volume. "Di!" he shouted, laughing the entire time. Despite being under the water, his cultivation base caused his muffled laughter to fill the entire area. Meng Hao watched blood-soaked Saint Sun's soul. "I shouldn't provoke this guy." His somber face was twisted ferociously, taciturn personality deranged with madness. "He's gone crazy," thought Meng Hao. Has the little swindler repressed himself too long? The more he watched, the more Saint Sun's soul seemed genuinely crazy. At some point the parrot appeared and perched on Meng Hao's shoulder. Its eyes went wide when it saw the slaughter being carried out by Saint Sun's soul. "He really has gone crazy," it said. The meat jelly was off to the side, nodding vigorously. "Don't offend that lunatic, Meng Hao. People like him are psychos." "Why aren't you out there collecting the demon hearts?" snapped Meng Hao. The parrot and the meat jelly, eyes glittering, immediately flew out and began to make their way back and forth across the seafloor to pick up the demon hearts. Saint Sun's soul saw this but didn't pay any heed. At the moment, he was happy to be killing things. Saint Sun's soul was engrossed in slaughter, employing multitudes of magical items. Meng Hao sat cross-legged in the formation, closing his eyes to meditate on fusing his 3 cultivation base portions. Time passed by. The slaughtering continued for 4 more hours. Saint Sun's soul's voice was getting hoarse, and yet his desire to kill had not lessened but rather had increased. After a while, Meng Hao opened his eyes. The seawater that surrounded them was now thoroughly red. After glancing at Saint Sun's soul, he closed his eyes again. After an incense stick burned, a tremor ran through him. He stood and turned to look at the distant seafloor. A feeling of imminent disaster washed over him. The resurrection lily sprang into action, excitement radiating from it. This omen roared in Meng Hao's mind. He strode toward Saint Sun's soul and waved his hand, causing the war chariot to appear. "This is fun," laughed Saint Sun's soul, his eyes completely bloodshot. "Fun my ass," Meng Hao growled. "Let's go." He reached out and grabbed Saint Sun's soul, pulling him onto the war chariot. Saint Sun's soul's eyes went wide, but he didn't resist. Rumble! The war chariot shot out, smashing through sea demons toward the surface. A sinister aura rose from the deep, chilling Saint Sun's soul. A faint voice could suddenly be heard within the cold and sinister aura. "My son, come back, come back." A huge tentacle shot from the depths like an enormous black shadow, almost upon them instantly. It moved so fast it nearly wrapped around the chariot. Meng Hao's eyes went bloodshot as he circulated the remaining chi of immortal shows the way. Saint Sun's soul's eyes widened. Looking at the tentacle, his scalp went numb, yet a stronger desire to battle welled up in him. He waved his right hand, causing the 3 swords that circulated around him to shoot toward the tentacle. Meng Hao looked up, and his eyes flickered with killing intent. He also waved his right hand, causing 5 times sword tips and the 100-sword lotus sword formation to appear and follow the 3 swords. A huge boom. Blood sprayed from both their mouths. Their combined power and shocking magical items caused the tentacle to pause. Even in the instant in which they called back their magical items, the war chariot started to move. It shot out of the ocean at incredible speed and then vanished. The resurrection lily branch exploded out from the red seawater, but then slowly descended back down. Red waves spread out for a while, but then the water grew calm again. Far away near Seahold, the war chariot appeared with a swish. Both Meng Hao and Saint Sun's soul were pale. They exchanged a glance. "What the hell was that?" said Saint Sun's soul through clenched teeth. "How did you attract it? You're adept at causing trouble. First the 10th Wang clan patriarch, now this." Meng Hao responded, "Didn't you say you control everything in the 3rd ring? If you don't know, how would I?" The two snorted and then stared at each other angrily. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Saint Sun's soul said, "How many demon hearts did we get?" Meng Hao did some calculations, and then his eyes began to shine. "About twice as many as last time," he said. Saint Sun's soul smiled. "Let's return to Seahold, rest a few days, then do it again." This chapter was sponsored by Kevin Ram Mayo, Jules Wada, and XYY. Chapter 674, The Wang Patriarch Cometh. Saint Sun's soul watched enviously as Meng Hao stowed the war chariot. After holding back, he finally said, "Your treasure is nice. Want to sell it?" "No," replied Meng Hao without hesitation. "Fine, forget about it," replied Saint Sun's soul with a cold harumph. "Crappy thing. I wouldn't take it if you gave it to me for free." "If you give me one free, I'll take it," said Meng Hao. "Screw off," replied Saint Sun's soul angrily. "Swindler, the demon hearts are in my bag. Say it again and see what happens." A bright gleam appeared in his eyes. Saint Sun's soul opened his mouth, but struggled to control himself and didn't say anything in response. A long moment passed, and when he finally did speak again, he changed the subject. "All right, no screwing around. What was that thing back there?" "A damnable, accursed resurrection lily," replied Meng Hao frankly. "Assumably, it resides in the 2nd ring." Resurrection lily. Saint Sun's soul's eyes narrowed and flickered. They arrived back at Seahold undetected. In the tower, they divided spoils. Though Meng Hao conned others, he kept his word and wouldn't be stingy. He didn't hold back a single demon heart. According to their agreement, Meng Hao got 10% and sold the rest at 50% discount. Spirit stones poured into his bag. Once again, Meng Hao realized Saint Sun's soul was filthy rich. Leaving with spirit stones, Meng Hao adopted Steward Zhou's manner. He returned to his residence and gritted his teeth. Considering how incredible the time sword tip was, he pulled out the copper mirror to duplicate. This time he made 5 in one go. Altogether, he now had 10 times sword tips, which meant that he could utilize the first form of the lotus sword formation. With the form complete, power increased exponentially. Meng Hao sent the formation flying back and forth, expression excited. Then he retrieved his wooden time swords and began to imbue them with more time power. Several days later, he and Saint Sun Soul snuck to a distant third ring area to slaughter sea demons. They worked better together. Saint Sun Soul grew excited at the killing. Meng Hao meditated, guarding against the Dawn Immortal. A month passed. They ran amok in the third ring. Other cultivators were shocked to find virtually no sea demons around. Furthermore, the third ring was so often filled with enormous waves that it made it impossible to go out. Their profits were incredible. Meng Hao's cultivation base had reduced from 3 portions to 2. The day that he could perform his spirit severing was just around the corner. His 100 wooden time swords now held 10 60-year cycles. The formation's power was incredible. His most deadly move was the 10 times sword tips. Even alone, they shocked Saint Sun Soul. Combined with the time sword formation as the lotus nucleus, sword chi filled a 1,000-meter area. He bought large amounts of self-detonating magical items from Saint Sun Soul, piling them in his bag. He was now armed to the teeth, and his overall strength was far more than before. They didn't encounter the Dawn Immortal again, although Meng Hao's vigilance in keeping guard never lessened. Meng Hao sat cross-legged in the formation. Saint Sun Soul was engaged in slaughter. "How many sea demons are in the third ring?" Meng Hao asked. "We've killed so many, yet they keep appearing." Saint Sun Soul swept his sword, killing 8, and looked at Meng Hao. "They're endless. Legend says 3 star portals exist underneath the Milky Way Sea. Supposedly, the star portals connect to the 9th sea, and that's where most of the sea demons come from. Of course, the star portals have limitations preventing any incredibly powerful sea demons from entering. A month ago, Saint Sun Soul wouldn't have shared this, but after a month together, despite daily bickering, their friendship had grown stronger. 3 star portals, said Meng Hao, staring in shock. "One in the third ring, another in the second ring, and a third in the inner ring," replied Saint Sun Soul. Meng Hao sat thoughtfully about to ask more when he sensed a cold, evil aura. Without hesitation, he rose and pulled out the war chariot. When Saint Sun Soul saw this, his face flickered and he instantly headed toward Meng Hao, who grabbed him and pulled him into the war chariot. Meng Hao was about to send the chariot flying when his eyes flickered. The Resurrection Lily's reaction was strangely different this time. It wasn't active and excited. Rather, it trembled as if terrified, like encountering something deadly. It retracted its aura, letting nothing emanate. Meng Hao made a light sound and spurred the chariot into motion. Suddenly, an ancient voice spoke in his ear. "The day the resurrection lily blooms in 7 colors, the flower blooms, immortal ascension, 1,000 years." Immortal ascension failed, and a white-bone lily appeared. Meng Hao's mind trembled. The resurrection lily trembled violently. The chariot shot up and flew at top speed. "I was unable to sever the resurrection lily," continued the voice, "so I could only sever myself. From then on, the resurrection lily was no more, and the white-bone lilies bloomed from shore to shore." Meng Hao took a deep breath and looked at the sea. The chariot vanished into the distance. It reappeared outside Seahold. Saint Sun Soul's face was unsightly. He'd led the city for years. The 3 sects called themselves Lords of the Milky Way Sea. Yet recently he'd realized secrets lurked in the depths he didn't know. He'd heard the voice too. Every time they returned, he'd searched ancient records, gradually understanding the resurrection lily. Silently, they returned to the tower and sat cross-legged on opposite sides of a table. After a moment of silence, Saint Sun Soul looked at Meng Hao. "That resurrection lily has most likely been here for many years, but has never made an appearance. Why would it suddenly emerge after you show up?" "Because I have a resurrection lily inside of me," replied Meng Hao coolly. He tossed a bag of holding filled with demon hearts over to Saint Sun Soul. Saint Sun Soul's pupils constricted. Meng Hao's answer confirmed his speculation. A long moment passed, after which Saint Sun Soul took the demon hearts and then produced spirit stones to give to Meng Hao. He was about to speak when a jade slip glowed. He took it out, glanced it over, and frowned. He looked at Meng Hao. "Saint Flying Immortal, Saint Sea Divinity, the 70,000 disciples. Even the 10th Wang clan patriarch are all emerging from the Stormwind Divide and are on their way here. Countless ships had emerged from the Stormwind Divide between the third and fourth rings. Cultivators sat cross-legged on them. Rumbling filled the air. They were densely packed together, and from a distance their numbers almost seemed endless. Flying in midair were two middle-aged men. One wore a blue robe, the other a white one. Their auras were bright, and their cultivation bases were shocking enough to fill the sky with a riot of colors. Next to the two flew an old man. That old man was none other than the 10th Wang clan patriarch. As soon as they emerged, they contacted Saint Sun Soul and then began to speed towards Seahold. Behind them, 70,000 disciples charged along, blotting out the sky. Back in Seahold, Meng Hao listened. Deep in his eyes a bright glow appeared. He stood up. Saint Sun Soul muttered to himself for a moment, then waved his right hand, causing a jade slip to fly out, which Meng Hao grabbed. "I'll help you," said Saint Sun Soul. "This jade slip describes an area we control. You can hide there. After everyone starts searching, I'll get you out of the third ring. That will make it harder for them to track you down." Meng Hao looked at the jade slip, then turned to leave without saying another word. Saint Sun Soul looked at his retreating figure, a complicated expression on his face. As he was about to leave, Meng Hao stopped. He had suddenly thought of a question he had been contemplating for over a month. "There's something I've been wondering about for a while. Is it just the Sun Soul Society that has such a shocking amount of spirit stones, or is it all of the three sects?" Saint Sun Soul smiled faintly. "Are you aware of what exists in the Stormwind Divide? A quarry. Inside that quarry are three astonishing veins of spirit stone deposits. The Sun Soul Society doesn't care at all about spirit stones." "That makes sense," said Meng Hao. "But would it be possible for you to tell me why you buy so many demon hearts? What do they do?" This time, Saint Sun Soul hesitated for a long moment. He didn't really need to answer the question, but after looking at Meng Hao for a long moment, he finally said, "Demon hearts have a far more important function. Actually, it would be best for you not to sell the demon hearts that remain in your bag of holding. As for what exactly they do, even my understanding is incomplete. However, I can tell you that 70% of the demon hearts collected by the three sects end up being sent away from the lands of South Heaven. We use a special method to deliver them to a sect in the stars who specially collects them. We buy them far cheaper than we sell them." Meng Hao nodded and flickered away. Before leaving, he found Wei Li and gave her spirit stones. Then he took out the chariot and vanished over the horizon. Not long after Meng Hao left, the 10th Wang clan patriarch arrived with Saint Flying Immortal and Saint Sea Divinity. They moved with incredible speed, appearing in Seahold moments later. Saint Sun Soul strode out, expression cold. He looked exactly as when Meng Hao first met him, glancing at the three approaching cultivators. /expand. The next day, shocking news rocked the third ring. 100,000 disciples from the three sects spread throughout the third ring, each holding a jade slip with the picture of a person they searched for. The third ring was shaken by the event. Even the three saints emerged to join the search. Notices appeared in all the shops of Seahold, offering valuable treasures to any cultivator who joined. Cultivators could be found virtually everywhere, searching the sea's surface. The third ring was in lockdown. The 10th Wang clan patriarch remained in Seahold, his divine sense divided into countless strands encoded into the jade slips. If anyone neared Meng Hao, he would instantly sense it. The 10th Wang clan patriarch was even prepared for Meng Hao having changed his appearance and aura. He would rather kill the wrong person than let Meng Hao escape. As the third ring boiled into a frenzy, Meng Hao sat cross-legged on an island, his face grim. In his hand was the jade slip that Saint Sun Soul had given him. "I don't want to test someone else's loyalty," he murmured, "nor place my hope in others' hands." He crushed the jade slip, then stood up and flew into the sea. Since he couldn't hide on the surface, he would conceal himself in its depths. When the jade slip was crushed, Saint Sun Soul was flying in midair. He suddenly stopped and smiled broadly. He understood Meng Hao's decision because he had been waiting to make his own. "This works," he thought. "I have one more friend and one less enemy." He sighed, recalling the past month's battles with the sea demons. At the same time, Meng Hao sped along the sea bottom. The resurrection lily's aura was completely suppressed, not a trace emanating out. He would glance around. If anything abnormal appeared, he was ready to deploy the war chariot instantly. Leaving the third ring requires passing through the Stormwind Divide. The 10th Wang clan patriarch is certainly prepared for that. Going there would be casting myself into his net. I can't stay in the third ring either. I'll definitely be found eventually, and then his eyes flickered. The second ring is where the Dawn Immortal lurks, he thought for a moment. A fiend ahead and an army behind. Who cares? His eyes gleamed coldly. In life, one seeks freedom, independence, and happiness. I knew the 10th Wang clan patriarch would come. Why hesitate? The second ring is my only option. I'll lure the 10th Wang clan patriarch there. Only in ultimate danger can I seize a chance to survive. That the Flying Immortal sect and Sea Divinity sect helped the Wang clan patriarch so quickly means they received incredible compensation. Killing intent flickered in his eyes. He had had enough of hiding and fleeing. Since returning from the Demon Immortal sect, he had done nothing but flee. The resentment and desire to kill had peaked. Slaying sea demons could not satisfy it. He needed to kill people. First sow chaos in the third ring, then lure the 10th Wang clan patriarch to me. After that, victory or defeat in the second ring. Meng Hao was about to proceed when he stopped. A sinister aura approached him. The resurrection lily trembled with terror. The terror shook Meng Hao. He took out the war chariot but didn't spur it forward. Instead, he looked down toward the sea bottom. It was the same location where he'd heard the voice before. The same ancient voice once again spoke, shattering the stillness. Immortal ascension failed and a whitebone lily appeared. I was unable to sever the resurrection lily, so I could only sever myself. From then on, the resurrection lily was no more, and the whitebone lilies bloomed from shore to shore. As he listened to the voice for a second time, Meng Hao could sense grief, indignation, and monstrous resentment in it. Others who heard the voice would be so terrified their hair would stand on end. Meng Hao, on the other hand, actually felt twinges of sympathy. He stood there silently for a moment before determination shone in his eyes. He sent the war chariot forward in the direction of the voice. Not much time passed before Meng Hao caught sight of the nearby region on the seafloor that was the origin of the sinister and vicious voice. It was an area filled with countless white bones. They were the bones of both cultivators and sea demons and seemed never-ending. From a distance, all of them seemed to form the shape of a lily. A whitebone lily. At the very center of the whitebone lily was a patch of black seaweed, within which was a skeleton, sitting there cross-legged. Its skin had long since rotted away, and it floated there gently amidst the seaweed, which curled and wrapped around it. As Meng Hao slowly neared, his mind trembled. The closer he got, the more the resurrection lily trembled, emitting terrified shrieks inside him. Within 300 meters of the whitebone lily, veins bulged across his body. A 5-colored resurrection lily appeared behind him, raging. When the 5-colored resurrection lily appeared, the skeleton in the seaweed suddenly stopped. It looked up, staring at Meng Hao with empty eye sockets. Meng Hao's mind roared as memories from the corpse poured into him through its eye sockets. He saw an old man wearing a long golden robe, sitting cross-legged at the bottom of the sea. In front of him was a silver-colored lamp that emanated a gentle glow. Even at the bottom of the sea, the lamp's flame could not be extinguished, and its light enveloped the old man. The old man's face twisted ferociously, twitching as if struggling against something. He experienced indescribable pain. Veins bulged on his face as he suddenly lifted his head and roared angrily. I am Reverend Silverlamp. I have practiced cultivation for 1,000 years at the peak of Tao seeking. How could I lose to a trifling resurrection lily? I clearly succeeded. I clearly expunged it. How could it have returned? As the man howled, an enormous illusory image appeared. Nearly 1,000 meters tall, it shockingly had 6 colors. A 6-colored resurrection lily. When it appeared, the old man trembled and his body withered. All of his life force, cultivation base, and memories were being sucked away by the resurrection lily. Immortal ascension. If the resurrection lily achieves immortal ascension, it sucks away the life force of the host. If I want to reach immortal ascension, then I must make use of the destiny of the resurrection lily. I will not yield. As the old man howled, his eyes filled with hatred and determination. I shall reach immortal ascension. It is all for immortal ascension. I am destined to be immortal, and I have my path to immortality. I was an immortal in my last life. How come? I cannot continue as an immortal in this life. If I cannot sever the resurrection lily, then I will sever myself. Sever my immortal destiny, my path to immortality. Transform my resentment into a sea of white bones. My bones will float at the bottom of the Milky Way Sea. My blood will stain the waters. I will use my bones to disperse the resurrection lily's will and cause countless whitebone lilies to bloom. The old man lifted his right hand and slapped his own chest. Blood sprayed from his mouth. His body withered rapidly. His blood oozed into the water, spreading in the currents and attracting sea demons. My soul will become white bones, parasites in countless life forms, the arch-foe of the resurrection lily. The old man laughed maniacally, spitting out blood. His blood and flesh ballooned outward as sea demons pounced on him. The sounds of crunching and tearing could be heard, as if countless fangs and mouths were consuming the old man's flesh and blood. Meng Hao couldn't see the old man, but he could hear his voice, filled with enmity and hatred. Archfoes. At the same time, the six-colored resurrection lily behind him began to wilt. It was one with the old man, so as the old man was consumed, it too was devoured. It struggled, but to no avail. After a certain amount of time had passed, a rumbling boom echoed out, and the sea demons were all driven away to reveal a white skeleton completely devoid of any flesh or blood. It slowly sank down into the seaweed below. The black seaweed encircled it, wrapped it up, and then it began to float there back and forth. As for the resurrection lily, it had completely vanished. Everything in the area grew quiet. As for the sea demons that had consumed his flesh and blood, suddenly they began to explode. Their flesh and blood attracted more sea demons, which consumed the flesh and blood and in turn exploded. The process repeated for a full 60-year cycle. By this time, the third ring of the Milky Way Sea was filled with the aura of the old man's flesh and blood. Because of that aura, all of the sea demons in this part of the sea were branded with the whitebone lily. As the vision faded, Meng Hao's mind trembled. He remained surrounded by countless white bones. The skeleton in the seaweed lowered its head and swayed back and forth. Meng Hao panted, his face ashen. The resurrection lily, I've underestimated it. That skeleton is Reverend Silverlamp. He once visited the Violet Fate sect. Master said he helped dispel the resurrection lily. Yet he died here, perishing with the resurrection lily to become its arch-foe, the whitebone lily. He had a six-colored resurrection lily, not seven. Reverend Silverlamp couldn't control a six-colored one, and mine already has 5 colors. Meng Hao's face fell. He had seriously underestimated the resurrection lily. If my resurrection lily blooms with 6 colors, my fate will match Reverend Silverlamp's. His face flickered as he looked around. The resurrection lily inside me is terrified. I might not dispel it alone, but I could borrow Reverend Silverlamp's power. His eyes narrowed and began to shine. His body flickered as he headed directly toward the skeleton. Allowing the resurrection lily to struggle madly, he crossed his legs and sat next to the seaweed without hesitation. A faint, sinister voice drifted toward him from the distance. "Leave that place, my child." This chapter was sponsored by Brett Flowers, Bjorn June, and Roderick Cinnamon. /expand. As the voice drifted out, Meng Hao looked distracted, as if empty inside. He slowly rose from his cross-legged position. "Leave that place, my child. Come to me. I've been waiting for you over 200 years. Come, come. Your blood suit's reaching maturity, and your soul needs to slumber. Come, I'm waiting for you." Meng Hao's expression grew blank, and he began walking away from the seaweed. 30 meters away, the immortal shows the way suddenly exuded a faint stream of qi that bored into his nascent soul. His nascent soul grew faint. Then suddenly, deep inside, a flying rain dragon became visible. It was small, seemingly sleeping. The stream of immortal qi found it and bored directly into it. The flying rain dragon opened its eyes and roared instantly. An enormous flying rain dragon, 30,000 meters long, appeared around Meng Hao. Shocking ripples emanated from it as it roared. The Dawn Immortal's aura vanished, and a tremor ran through Meng Hao. His eyes became clear, looking up at the astonishing flying rain dragon. The flying rain dragon turned its head to look at him. In that instant, Meng Hao felt as if he were looking at himself. The flying rain dragon vanished. Meng Hao's face was pale white as he recalled what happened. He cast his vision inward and found countless tendrils of the resurrection lily throughout his body. Meng Hao's eyes flashed with killing intent as he returned to the seaweed. The resurrection lily trembled and shrank back. By the time he sat cross-legged, it had completely hidden itself. "Right here, right now. I'll borrow Reverend Silverlamp's power to thoroughly sever the resurrection lily. I will use spirit severing. My first severing will sever the resurrection lily. I wish to be the master of my own life. No outsider will control me. I want freedom. My path is a journey, my Dawa direction. I pursue truth, exercise control, and live with independence." That is my will of spirit severing. I will crush all obstacles and destroy anything that blocks my way. Any stumbling block will be trampled underfoot. Fearless freedom, independence. The heavens will not obscure my gaze. The earth will not shackle my feet. For freedom, I'll pay any price. For independence, I'll sever anything. The resurrection lily is a mountain on my path. When I pass it, my path stretches into the distance. It is a fetter, a cage restricting my freedom. I will sever it, and in that instant I have my independence and practice cultivation in freedom. This is my first severing. This is my spirit severing domain. This is my Tao of spirit severing. Meng Hao's eyes glowed with enlightenment. He had remained in the great circle of the nascent soul stage for too many years. The demon immortal sex baptism and the 10th Wang clan patriarch's pursuit had reborn him, purified by fire. Finally, he reached complete understanding. Meng Hao's cultivation base began to rumble. The two cultivation base portions within him suddenly began fusing together at high speed. His thinking had governed his cultivation base's rotation. In that instant of realization, rumble, Meng Hao's entire body trembled. The two cultivation base portions instantly merged, and his nascent soul vanished. His body shone with brilliant, multicolored light. The light circulated, swirling to form in front of him, transforming into a blade as he opened his eyes. A multicolored blade containing a great Tao of heaven and earth. It contained the full power of his cultivation base. 9 nascent souls merged, the 5 elements of heaven and earth combined. It also contained the memories and experiences of 200 years of cultivation. When Meng Hao looked at the blade, he looked at himself. In this moment, Meng Hao's heart contained neither joy nor sorrow. He had forgotten everything except his thirst for freedom and desire for independence. The resurrection lily sensed danger. It could hide from his divine sense, but it could not hide from this blade. The sense of impending death caused the resurrection lily to struggle, as if wishing to burst from him. It wanted to wrest away the initiative. As soon as it moved, dim light emanated from the skeleton in the seaweed. The third ring sea surface surged. Imprints of the whitebone lily shone on all sea demons in the third ring. The marks looked like grotesque faces, emanating ghastly auras that combined to suppress the resurrection lily. Boom! The resurrection lily struggled and shrieked with a voice only Meng Hao heard. The illusory image of a 5-colored resurrection lily sprang up behind him, in complete frenzy and struggling madly. Meng Hao's expression was calm, though his body withered rapidly, his life force and cultivation base being sucked away. He remained motionless, staring at the blade in front of him. The resurrection lily screamed and shrieked, its struggles intensifying. The suppressive power from Reverend Silverlamp's whitebone lily rushed in, dealing a severe blow to the 5-colored resurrection lily. Its body verged on dissipating. It had no choice but to absorb Meng Hao again. Some time afterwards, when Meng Hao's body had shriveled and become almost skeletal, the blade in front of him jerked slightly, then slowly rose up. As the blade lifted up, an immeasurably powerful, heaven-shaking aura arose with it. Instantly, it pierced through the surface of the sea and up into the skies, forming a connection with the vast heavens. From a distance, the third ring seethed and churned as a beam of light shot up into the dark night, making it seem like daytime. In that moment, as Saint Soul's sun hovered above the Milky Way sea, his face flickered, and he suddenly turned his head to gaze at it. Someone is performing spirit severing, but how could this spirit severing provoke such transformations in heaven and earth? At the same time, Saint Flying Immortal and Saint Sea Divinity also got the same feeling. They looked at the beam of light, and how the sky was being illuminated, and their faces filled with astonishment. The 10th Wang clan patriarch currently sat cross-legged in meditation in Seahold. Suddenly, his eyes snapped open and he looked off into the distance, an expression of joy appearing on his face. Those are the ripples of spirit severing. It's him. So he is here. He truly is exceptional. His spirit severing can connect with the heavens of Jai and provoke changes in the sky. However, you dare to perform spirit severing in front of me. Let's see how you escape this time. The 10th Wang clan patriarch gave a cold snort and stood up. It was at this point that his face suddenly flickered with an expression of disbelief. Even with his level of willpower, what he saw left him speechless. Impossible. The beam of light shooting up from the sea did not stop in the sky. It shot out into the starry sky, causing the heavenly bodies themselves to emanate bursts of starlight as they suddenly changed position to form an astral blade. The blade shined down on the lands of South Heaven, and soon everyone therein could look up into the sky and see the image of the massive blade. It was almost as if it had shattered the sky above the lands of South Heaven and was now descending upon it. Simultaneously, the aura of a great Tao descended from the sky toward the Milky Way Sea. It penetrated the surface of the waters and fell on the blade floating in front of Meng Hao. The blade of the first severing actually provoked transformations among the stars, exclaimed the 10th Wang clan patriarch. What Tao did he gain enlightenment of? Taos have rankings, they can be great or small. This Meng Hao's Tao, just what is it? It can cause the stars to transform into a heavenly blade that will assist him in Tao severing. The heavenly blade is a heavenly Tao. The blade of the first severing is also the first Tao of spirit severing. 1. Please note that in Chinese, the words for blade and Tao sound almost exactly the same. The 10th Wang clan patriarch's face filled with complete astonishment, and he stopped moving. As of this moment, he didn't dare to get even close to Meng Hao's location. A great Tao was coming, and with his cultivation base, if he got near, he would die for sure. Meanwhile, the state of Zhao floated in the Milky Way Sea on top of Patriarch Reliance. The entire island suddenly rumbled, and an enormous head stretched out from the water to look up into the sky. That little bastard is performing Tao severing. Damn it. The little bastard is an inhuman among inhumans. The Patriarch needs to get out of here. Fudge, you really piss me off, you little bastard. In the lands of the southern domain, Su Qing was in the midst of cultivation when suddenly a tremor ran through her, as if she had just sensed something. She rushed out of her immortal's cave and looked up into the sky. It seemed as if she could actually see Meng Hao. In the Violet Fate sect, Pill Demon was concocting pills when he suddenly froze. He looked up into the sky, and his face broke into a smile. Next to him was Chu Yuyan, who also seemed to sense something. She looked up and seemed to lose herself staring at the sky. In the same moment, Fatty, Chen Fan, and all the other people in the southern domain who knew Meng Hao all had different reactions. However, none came close to those of Su Qing and Pill Demon. With one exception. In the Blood Demon sect, a middle-aged man wearing a red robe was surrounded by a blood-colored glow. He stood on the peak of a mountain, looking up into the sky, a faint smile on his face. You and I are connected by destiny. The Blood Demon sect is definitely the home you shall return to. 2. If you're interested in reviewing chapters that may or may not have to do with the Blood Demon sect and Meng Hao, check out chapter 34, 93, 94, 95, 580-583. Chapter 677, The Great Tao Resonates. The First Blade of Spirit Severing. The First Tao of Spirit Severing. Meng Hao sat cross-legged at the Milky Way Sea's bottom. Around him stretched skeletal remains forming the outline of a flower. Amongst the swaying seaweed, the skeleton pulsed with faint light that turned ghastly white, bone-like. It weighed down on the five-colored resurrection lily, suppressing it into a frenzy. Meng Hao's body withered until he looked like a bag of bones, yet his eyes shined with unprecedented life force. He embodied the Tao, all his mind, heart, and will focused in his eyes, resting on the multicolored blade. He ignored everything outside. His entire focus was the blade. The blade moved, slowly raising. As it did, the blade in the heavens above, containing innumerable constellations, rose high, casting its light down onto South Heaven. Gigantic waves swelled across the Milky Way Sea, crashing and thundering far and wide. The blade's movement even caused the Violet Sea in the western desert to roil violently. All cultivators and living things in the outer sea, fourth ring and third ring, were flabbergasted. The 10th Wang clan patriarch's face was unsightly as he stared into the sky. His face flickered with various emotions, but he didn't dare step toward the area where Meng Hao performed his spirit severing. A great Tao was nearing. Were he to step into that area, that Tao would exterminate him in body and spirit. This Tao was not his Tao. Damn it, he cursed, killing intent growing in his eyes. Your spirit severing must end. You absolutely must not kill yourself, child, or I'll never acquire your Tao foundation. What Tao did you come to understand? Within the third ring, the three saints' faces flickered. Unlike Saint Flying Immortal and Saint Sea Divinity, Saint Sun Soul's eyes glowed with strange light. He instantly determined the spirit severing was performed by Meng Hao. You were only a half step into spirit severing, he thought, taking a deep breath. As the astral blade slowly rose, the struggling resurrection lily's image reached insanity. It quivered in terror, experiencing unprecedented deadly crisis. This was its first true dread. It clearly sensed that the blade had the power to sever it away. That blade was backed by a great Tao's power, something it could not resist. A faint voice came from the skeleton in the seaweed. The long-dead Reverend Silverlamp's eyes suddenly glowed with lucidity. The Tao of freedom, of independence. He looked at Meng Hao and murmured, "Were it not for the resurrection lily tempering him, this kid would never have comprehended such a great Tao of heaven and earth. Sever the fetters, achieve true independence." Interesting. It's impossible to tell if he was tempered by the resurrection lily or it was tempered by him. I can barely sense both have someone watching over them. One is the second ring's dawn immortal, mother of the resurrection lily in South Heaven. The other is in the eastern lands. Even as Reverend Silverlamp was looking at Meng Hao, a sinister gaze shot out from the black depths of the sea in the second ring, bearing a boundless evil. Despite the evil, it still exhibited a trace of immortal will as it peered towards Meng Hao. I bloomed at dawn, thought the owner of the voice, and my consciousness emerged. On the day of vicissitudes, I achieved immortal ascension and met someone I should not have met. Shuimo stole away my heart, a heart that contained all of the longing from my previous life. It sank down into the Milky Way Sea and was sealed in a formation of stone, locked away in a copper coffin, restrained by countless chains. What was locked away was my goodness. Eventually, it transformed into a rock, which now weeps in the rebirth cave. The League of Demon Sealers. The ninth is the pinnacle. Is he your hope? I knew long ago that if I could not find you, then I would destroy the hope of the League of Demon Sealers. The gaze coming from the second ring looked at Meng Hao with complex emotions. There was coldness, confusion, hatred, and viciousness. Meanwhile, in the great Tang of the eastern lands, a woman was looking in the direction of the Milky Way Sea. Her gaze penetrated through the air, through the Milky Way Sea, all the way to Meng Hao. It was a gaze filled with concern, worry, nervousness, and anxiety. All of that transformed into an endless love that wrapped up her heart. She stood atop a lofty tower of Tang, gazing far into the distance. Next to her, a man silently clasped her hand. He felt her trembling, felt the sweat in her palm. 1. A tower of Tang was first mentioned in Chapter 1. "This is Hayar's tribulation," he said softly. "I wanted him to live a normal mortal life, yet he chose cultivation. Now there's no looking back. If he fails," he murmured, "we can receive him when he is reincarnated. We can spend a whole life with him, walk a 60-year cycle of springs and autumns." He spoke both to the woman and himself. "You're very cold-hearted," said the woman. Tears flowed down her cheeks. A tremor ran through the man and he closed his eyes. Bitter pain filled his heart. He recalled the fragile child running through the fog that year, weeping as he cried out for his father and mother. The boy limped about trying to find him. When the boy caught sight of him, tears filled the boy's eyes, and he realized how much the boy relied on him. "Lee, you don't understand." The man whispered this in his heart, too. The Lee character here is Chinese letter. Rumble. At the Milky Way Sea's bottom, Meng Hao's eyes shined with bright glow. He slowly looked up at the blade as it rose higher. In the heavens above, the astral blade reared up simultaneously. As they moved toward an apex, the blade seemed to build power. By the apex, all living beings in the Milky Way Sea watched. The astral blade suddenly began slashing down toward the sea. Rumbling filled the sky, and the sea suddenly split apart. The seafloor, untouched by sunlight for countless ages, was revealed to the world for the first time. Exposed therein was Meng Hao, as well as the resurrection lily, struggling in all of its madness. Also visible was the multicolored blade hovering in front of Meng Hao. The first blade of spirit severing. "Heaven and earth are just resting places for the myriads of living creatures," he murmured. "Time represents the passage of hundreds of generations of passing travelers." A glow of determination appeared in his eyes, and the blade descended. 3. Here he is quoting the words originally spoken in Chapter 291 in the Illusory Life, and then repeated in Chapter 626 when he was talking to the Demon Mountain in the Demon Immortal sect. "My life is just such a resting place. Wherever my footsteps lead, that is my direction." His voice echoed out, softly at first, then louder and louder. "Sever the fetters and achieve true independence, acquire true freedom." The sound of his voice caused everything in the area to shake and rumble. The parted sea water roared, and the glow of the astral blade increased tenfold. It almost seemed to have formed a resonance with Meng Hao. That resonance caused heaven and earth to dim. The wind whipped and the clouds churned. The glow of the astral blade spread without end, and the multicolored blade in front of Meng Hao emanated a shocking will. This was the resonance of a great Tao. The glow grew more intense, transforming into ripples and then vibration. The air around Meng Hao twisted and distorted, and countless ghost images sprang up. When the 10th Wang clan patriarch felt it, his face fell. The resonance of a great Tao. In the second ring, the eyes of the mother of the resurrection lily went wide. As for the couple in the great Tang of the eastern lands, both of them trembled. Only great determination and incredible enlightenment could form a resonance like this. Spirit severing is not difficult when compared to causing a Tao, but even more difficult is to form a resonance. Meng Hao's heart, will and mind all fused with the descending great Tao. They became indistinguishable. I am the great Tao, and the great Tao is me. In that moment, be it in the southern domain, the northern reaches, or the eastern lands, the patriarchs and almighty members of all the sects and clans could all sense the resonance of the great Tao. The resonance formed the first blade of spirit severing, a blade that would sever, not Meng Hao's life or existence, but rather, any flaws within him that did not conform to his Tao. Use the Tao to sever the Tao. It was like a baptism that cleansed any disharmonies, that purged the self. Any nonconforming Tao was absolutely unnecessary. And of course, the resurrection lily was just such a flaw, just such a disharmony, just such a nonconforming Tao. It was absolutely unnecessary. Free and unconstrained, at liberty to walk about anywhere in heaven and earth. No one can restrict me. Heaven cannot impede me, and the earth cannot restrain my heart. This is my Tao. Freedom, independence. Meng Hao's voice was like that of a god, each word cracking like thunder. The Milky Way sea rumbled. The dawn immortal shook. The couple in the eastern lands trembled, as did the 10th Wang clan patriarch. The words he had spoken just now were filled with Meng Hao's great determination. Everything trembled as the astral blade arrived. It merged with Meng Hao's multicolored blade, transforming into a Tao blade that slashed down into the top of his head in the exact moment that he finished speaking. The blade moved with incredible speed. No sooner had his words finished than it had pierced the top of his head into his neck, and then his heart. It passed through his Danshan region, and then all the way through him, completely bisecting him. However, Meng Hao didn't move a muscle, and his face even showed hints of a smile. In contrast, the five-colored resurrection lily behind him let out an unprecedentedly blood-curdling scream. It trembled violently as any connection it had to Meng Hao was instantly broken. 5 colorful strands were snapped, and the five-colored resurrection lily began to wither up rapidly. It was not willing, and it virtually exploded with resentment and madness. But unfortunately, there was nothing it could do. In that moment, its will completely vanished. Vanished for all eternity. Meng Hao's first blade of spirit severing severed the fetters, carving out his freedom. He had obtained independence. In that moment, he erupted with a boundless, endless life force. His previously withered fleshly body was restored. Meng Hao looked up, and even as the image of the resurrection lily was about to completely dissipate, he reached out and grabbed it. You lived in me for 200 years, parasite. Do you really think the old scores could be settled so easily? From now on, you are my spirit-severing treasure. The day I get you to bloom with 7 colors is the day I reach immortal ascension. This chapter was sponsored by Madatsugu Oba. Chapter 678, Intrepid Meng Hao. Every spirit-severing cultivator had a spirit-severing treasure, refined in the moment of spirit-severing, created from an object unique to each individual's enlightenment. Meng Hao chose the fading 5-colored resurrection lily as his spirit-severing treasure, conforming with his Tao. The soulless resurrection lily couldn't struggle. As soon as he grabbed it, it merged into his palm, transforming into a flower-shaped mark. He took a deep breath as he rose to his feet, his cultivation base flaring. This was a true spirit-severing cultivation base with a 3,000-meter area solely his. All spirit-severing cultivators had their own area. Meng Hao became more slender. Immersed in the great Tao, his fleshly body was stronger and taller. In an instant, he reached the spirit-severing fleshly body's absolute pinnacle. It could progress no further. If it did, it would be a Tao-seeking fleshly body. His cultivation base rocketed up. Years restricting himself to nascent soul stage had created a buildup that now exploded out. In an instant, he reached the first severing's limit, a breakthrough giving him second severing cultivation base power. He only lacked a second severing domain. Once he received enlightenment and performed the second severing, he would instantly be at spirit severing's peak. His longevity increased under the powerful life force. His hair turned black, his physique matchless. He looked younger, though his features radiated a certain ancientness. His entire person experienced tremendous, earth-shaking transformation as he was completely reborn. Some distance off in the Milky Way Sea, the 10th Wang clan patriarch panted, staring into the distance. His eyes shone with bizarre light and intense avarice. With such latent talent and good fortune, no wonder he has a perfect Tao foundation. It's mine, definitely mine. He vanished instantly. At the same time, in the black depths of the second ring, the Dawn Immortal's eyes closed. When they opened, infinite coldness appeared. In the great tang of the eastern lands, the couple stood together. Tears of joy streamed down the woman's face. Without spirit severing, one cannot live past 1,000. My son practiced only 200 years and succeeded in spirit severing, provoking a great Tao's descent. She looked at the man. How does such talent compare to your clan's people? The man stood silently for a moment, then sighed. I'm not worried about his talent. Even if poor, he's our son. Is immortal ascension difficult? I fear his talent is too good. The cultivation path is not easy. How many perish? How many are completely eradicated? How many are destroyed in body and soul? The woman shivered silently. He must deal with his spirit-severing tribulation, he continued softly. The woman's face flickered and she took a step forward. The man grabbed her arm. This is his real tribulation, and karma is in everything. If you help him, the sown karma grows greater. When the reckoning comes, it will be greater too. In cultivation, you cannot build without first tearing down. If he transcends the tribulation, when immortal ascension comes, I will take him to East Victory. The man spoke with determination that could chop nails, but hidden in his hand was a medicinal pill. Medicinal pill rarely seen in South Heaven, a precious treasure. Hayar, thought the man, if you fail, Father will find you in reincarnation. Even if you perish, this pill can bring you back to life. But I truly wish you can transcend the tribulation on your own. Back in the Milky Way Sea, Meng Hao lifted his head and roared in laughter as his cultivation base exploded up. Power filled him with passion. Finally acquiring freedom made his thinking incredibly clear. His divine sense spread to 300,000 meters. Hosts of magical techniques and divine abilities flashed through his mind, many instantly enlightened. As he flew up, two beams of light appeared from the distance. Two middle-aged men sped toward him, Saint Flying Immortal and Saint Sea Divinity. As soon as they caught sight of Meng Hao, they knew they found their target. His first severing severed not only the resurrection lily, but also his false appearance, revealing his true features. Meng Hao, cried Saint Flying Immortal, his voice rumbling like thunder. The sea churned as if about to explode. Cold radiance appeared in Meng Hao's eyes. He immediately knew who they were. As Saint Flying Immortal spoke, glittering glow covered Saint Sea Divinity. Armor appeared on him instantly, and he strode forward. Even he was moved by the reward promised by the 10th Wang clan patriarch. Capturing Meng Hao brought the greatest benefits. He shot with incredible speed toward Meng Hao, performing an incantation to summon an enormous trident. The sea stirred, and vast quantities of seawater shot up into the air. As he neared, he pointed with the trident. The seawater roared as it formed into an enormous hand reaching for Meng Hao. Are you looking to die? Said Meng Hao. He was displeased with the Flying Immortal sect and Sea Divinity sect. Now that Saint Sea Divinity attacked, Meng Hao's killing intent flared. He took a step forward without evading. That step slammed him into the seawater hand. A huge boom echoed. The hand collapsed. Meng Hao emerged unharmed, directly in front of Saint Sea Divinity. He reached out with his right hand, on which the mountain-consuming incantation manifested. A wave of his hand caused 1,000 mountains to appear and smash down towards Saint Sea Divinity. Saint Sea Divinity's face fell as he retreated, waving his arm to summon 100,000 magical symbol spirits. They formed into 10 symbol beasts, radiating spirit-severing power as they charged Meng Hao. Meng Hao snorted coldly without dodging. 1,000 mountains sent shocking ripples. The symbol beasts immediately exploded. They weren't qualified to face the 1,000 mountains, which shot towards Saint Sea Divinity. Everything was happening too quickly. Saint Flying Immortal had no chance to even react, and Saint Sea Divinity's mind filled with an intense feeling of deadly crisis. He suddenly shouted out, causing his trident to begin to flicker and glow. It instantly transformed into an enormous wall of black sea water in front of him. Boom! The wall exploded. At the same time, Meng Hao's 1,000 mountains also disappeared. However, the aftershock of the explosion caused Saint Sea Divinity's face to go pale. As he retreated backward, Meng Hao strode toward him. He raised his hand, killing intent flickering in his eyes. He did not use any sort of magical technique or divine ability, but instead punched out directly. As the fist descended upon Saint C divinity, it seemed to blot out the sky. Energy like that of heavenly might surged, causing Saint C divinity to feel intense fear. He quickly spit a glowing blue pearl out of his mouth, which then shot toward Meng Hao. Meng Hao's fist slammed into it, and the pearl shattered. It was completely incapable of standing up to Meng Hao's fist, which continued onward to connect with Saint C divinity. Bam! As the sound echoed out in all directions, blood sprayed from the mouth of Saint C divinity. Cracking sounds could be heard as his armor shattered into pieces. His terror had now reached a pinnacle. Flying Immortal, help me. Saint Flying Immortal's face flickered, and he took a deep breath. He had never imagined that Meng Hao, having just stepped into spirit severing, would be so terrifying. Damn it, even if his spirit severing caused strange phenomena in heaven and earth, and even if he caused a great Tao to descend, there's no explanation for him to be so inhuman. He was still in the midst of feeling shocked when Saint C divinity called for his help. Gritting his teeth, he shot forward, raising his right hand toward the sky. Instantly, a sword of light appeared, which he grasped in his hand. At the same time, his speed increased rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he was upon Meng Hao. "Area," said Meng Hao coolly, not even turning back to look at Saint Flying Immortal. In that instant, a 3,000-foot area sprang up, a world that contained Meng Hao's Tao and will. The area world. Saint Flying Immortal's speed was suddenly reduced. His mind trembled as Meng Hao once again punched out. 9 Heavens Destruction. The first punch of the 9 Heavens Destruction, the first heaven, caused a boom to rattle out. Blood poured out of Saint C divinity's mouth, and his body seemed to be on the verge of exploding. Even as he let out a blood-curdling scream, Meng Hao stepped forward and punched out with the second heaven. Then the third heaven and the fourth heaven. Saint C divinity's body was blasted apart. His nascent divinity flew out, screaming miserably. "Legacy treasure," he howled, instantly causing a statue to fly out from inside the nascent divinity. The statue was pitch black and depicted a faceless figure. As soon as the statue appeared, it let out a pulsating aura of Tao seeking, which transformed into a wall that expanded out to surround Saint C divinity. "Legacy treasure," said Meng Hao. He punched out with the 5th heaven and the 6th heaven. Booms filled the area and the statue trembled. Then the 7th heaven and the 8th heaven. The statue shook and the wall trembled. Inside, despair filled Saint C divinity's face. "9th heaven, destruction," said Meng Hao calmly. He lifted his right hand, and this time it wasn't a fist but a palm that softly pushed out. Bang! The wall collapsed, and the statue was sent tumbling back. Inside, Saint C divinity's nascent divinity let the last scream it ever would. He was now destroyed in body and spirit. "How can he be so strong?" thought Saint Flying Immortal. Having personally witnessed Saint C divinity perishing, his scalp went numb, and his heart filled with astonishment. He quickly bit down on the tip of his tongue and spit out a mouthful of blood. He burned life force, not hesitating to waste longevity to struggle free from Meng Hao's area world. He transformed into a beam of light that fled at top speed. Meng Hao turned back to look, and his eyes flickered. He raised his hand to collect up Saint C divinity's bag of holding, then waved his arm to summon the war chariot. "Anyone who chased me, along with that 10th Wang clan bastard, will have to pay the price." Chapter 679, Battle. How can he be so strong? A great Tao descended, making it great Tao spirit severing, different from mine, but it still doesn't explain such terror. He hasn't used magical techniques or items. He's only relying on his fleshly body. Damn it, what level is his fleshly body? Magical items are ineffective, and divine abilities can't shake it. What type of fleshly body is it? Saint Flying Immortal's fear reached its peak. In his entire cultivation life, he had never encountered a same-stage cultivator who terrified him so. "Damn you, 10th Wang clan patriarch, you conned me. If I'd known Meng Hao was so inhuman, nothing would convince me to join you." He flew forward at top speed, fearful. He spit out blood and burned life force to go faster. But no speed matched the war chariot. Meng Hao rode the war chariot, fueling it with Immortal shows the way. It caught up with Saint Flying Immortal instantly and slammed toward him. Saint Flying Immortal's face fell, unable to evade. He only had time to wave his sword of light to block. A huge boom echoed. The sword shattered. Saint Flying Immortal's body exploded. His nascent divinity flew out in sorry state. Meng Hao exited the war chariot and waved his hand, employing the 8th demon sealing hex. Countless invisible strands instantly entwined his nascent divinity. Imminent death flooded his mind. His eyes bulged and he struggled violently, powerless as Meng Hao waved his hand, causing 100 wooden time swords to fly out, circulating to form a lotus sword formation. A miserable shriek echoed as Saint Flying Immortal's nascent divinity began withering rapidly. In about 10 breaths, it shrank as if being refined. Then it withered away. He was dead in body and spirit. Meng Hao waved his hand to collect Saint Flying Immortal's bag of holding, then looked over the lotus sword formation. The lotus is also like refining, he thought. 1. In Chinese, the word for lotus and refine sound very similar. Crackling thunder echoed in the sky. The wind whipped about, and in an instant the sunny day turned dark. Countless pitch-black clouds surged up, forming a giant face, the 10th Wang clan patriarch's face. Crisscrossing bolts of lightning surrounded it, heralded by peals of thunder. On the forehead an old man appeared, eyes glittering brightly. Meng Hao. The voice drowned out thunder, like a heavenly being's majestic roar, blasting an enormous depression into the sea, which rapidly transformed into a spinning vortex. Meng Hao took a deep breath and looked coldly at the 10th Wang clan patriarch. Another clone, he said. His divine sense was more powerful than before, and he understood the 10th Wang clan patriarch better now that he'd fought his clones. He instantly recognized this as just another clone. Meng Hao raised his right hand into a fist, and the mountain-consuming incantation appeared. Thousands of mountains appeared around him, then tens of thousands. The mountains were large and appeared to contain seawater, representing all underwater mountains in his divine sense range. The mountain-consuming incantation is divided into 3 aspects: mountain, soul, and will. My cultivation-based breakthrough enlightened me regarding the soul. With my demon sealing powers and the art of righteous bestowal, I can extract souls of mountains and insert them into mine. This is the complete second stage of the mountain-consuming art. Meng Hao's eyes shone with strange light. Facing the 10th Wang clan patriarch, he felt pressure but also intense desire to battle. He raised his hand and pushed it down toward the sea. Righteous bestowal. Mountains of the Milky Way Sea, you lie beneath the waters, living in a world without daylight. Today, I, Meng Hao, will borrow your souls. I will split open heaven and earth and allow you to bathe in sunlight. Emerge. The sea began to seethe as the mountains within trembled. An invisible aura spread up from them toward the surface. The souls of the mountains appeared, merging into Meng Hao's summoned mountains. Thousands upon tens of thousands of mountains, a world-shaking sight, completely incomparable. As the mountains spun around Meng Hao, he stretched his arms wide. Hair flying, eyes blazing with battle desire, he swept his hands forward. The tens of thousands of mountains shot through the air with shocking rumbling sounds, heading directly toward the gigantic face. The 10th Wang clan patriarch's face flickered as he performed an incantation. The face sped toward the mountains. They neared, then slammed into each other with a rumbling boom filling the 3rd ring. One mountain after another collapsed, and the face was riddled with gaping wounds. A moment later, amidst deafening roars, all of the mountains collapsed, and the face fell apart into pieces. Meng Hao didn't pause for a moment. He flew up into the air, waving his arm to cause 100 wooden time swords to appear and form into the lotus sword formation. Instantly, the formation shot toward the 10th Wang clan patriarch. At the same time, he began to clench and unclench his fist. Every time he did this, his energy would redouble. It was none other than the 9 heavens' destruction. Now that his cultivation base was truly in the spirit-severing stage, he had gained complete enlightenment of it. The 10th Wang clan patriarch's pupils constricted. He could clearly sense that Meng Hao was completely different than he remembered, and was far, far more powerful. And yet you are still an insignificant bug, he said with a cold snort. He waved his right hand, causing a red glow to appear in the cloud-choked sky. It was a sun, a red sun. Setting sun, he said coolly. The red glow spread out to fill heaven and earth, instantly causing Meng Hao's 100 wooden time swords to slow down. Time combustion, growled Meng Hao. In response to the words, the 100 wooden time swords and their 10 60-year cycles of time power instantly began to burn. The combustion of time caused their speed to increase dramatically. They pierced through the layers of redness to appear near the 10th Wang clan patriarch, where they spun around him slowly. Merely a single rotation caused the 10th Wang clan patriarch's face to flicker. He could sense that his clone had, in the blink of an eye, lost several thousand years of longevity. A trifling time treasure, shatter. He gave a cold snort, and the red glow grew even more shocking. It now emanated intense heat that spread out and began to shatter the wooden time swords. Meng Hao was already moving forward. Detonate. BOOMMM. The 100 wooden time swords, 70 simultaneously exploded. When the spring and autumn trees detonated, they unleashed an insane power of time that turned into a time vortex. The 10th Wang clan patriarch's face fell as the rumbling echoed out. His body began to wither, and he was just about to retreat when Meng Hao shot forward as fast as lightning. His right fist had already clenched 8 times in a row. Now it clenched for the 9th time and then punched toward the 10th Wang clan patriarch. 9 heavens destruction. Setting sun, falling clouds. The 10th Wang clan patriarch's body emanated a monstrous red glow that billowed out. Meng Hao faced it head-on, and his body ignited into flames. However, his fist still struck its target. A huge boom rattled out, and the 10th Wang clan patriarch fell back, his face pale. Killing intent radiated from his eyes as he saw that Meng Hao, blood pouring from his mouth and body in flames, was actually pursuing him. Meng Hao's hoarse voice once again rang out, "Detonate." The detonation from before had been that of 70 wooden time swords. There were still 30 left, all of which exploded at the same time. A tempest of time was created in the 10th Wang clan patriarch's path of retreat, finally managing to wound him. Blood sprayed from his mouth, after which he lifted his head up and roared with rage. Of 3 clones, 2 had been slain. This third clone was somewhat weak, was not carrying any magical items, and was limited in the divine abilities it could use. However, it had a Tao-seeking cultivation base. How could it be injured in this way? The 10th Wang clan patriarch, it was a humiliation. After panting a few times, he stifled his rage and then looked at Meng Hao approaching him. "He's intentionally trying to exasperate me. I must under no circumstances come here with my true self. He may still be able to use that immortal sword, and the threat that could pose to me must not be underestimated." Glaring at Meng Hao, he cried, "Call the wind, summon the rain." Black clouds containing black dragons whistled around him as a deluge drenched the vicinity. Each raindrop contained killing intent. The raindrops seemed to cover heavens and earth as they headed straight for Meng Hao. "Even if I have to sacrifice this clone, I need to draw out that immortal sword. After he uses it, then my true self can come." Meng Hao, his body in flames, quickly retreated. A violet glow appeared in his eyes, and he burned life force to restore his flesh, which visibly healed at a rapid rate. Even as the 10th Wang clan patriarch neared him, Meng Hao stepped into the war chariot. It was in that moment that the black dragons roared, and the dense rain of killing intent began to close in. Meng Hao pushed down onto the war chariot with his hand. Even while continuing to heal himself, he sent the chi of immortal shows the way into the war chariot. Then, instead of fleeing, he shot toward the 10th Wang clan patriarch with all the power the war chariot could muster. Outside of the war chariot, one vicious beast after another materialized, roaring. The sounds of their chains echoed about as they charged at top speed toward the 10th Wang clan patriarch, whose face immediately flickered. He hadn't sensed earlier that the war chariot was extraordinary, so seeing what was happening now left him shaken inwardly. He instantly moved to evade. However, his speed was no match for the war chariot. A boom could be heard as it slammed into him. Any black dragons along the way collapsed and the rainwater was destroyed. A massive energy swelled up, slamming into the 10th Wang clan patriarch. Blood poured from his mouth as he performed a double-handed incantation and then shoved his hands out forward. His face was twisted ferociously as he utilized the entire power of his cultivation base. Even still, he was shoved backward by 300 meters. By the time he came to a stop, blood was gushing out of his mouth, but his body had not been destroyed. Before spirit severing, he was no weakling. However, I never imagined that after reaching spirit severing, he would be so swift and fierce. I must have this perfect Tao foundation. This chapter was sponsored by Madatsugu Oba, Junior 42, and Sina Amidhazer. /expand. Meng Hao stood in the war chariot, watching the 10th Wang clan patriarch fall backward swiftly. Killing intent flickered in his eyes as he waved a hand, causing Han Shan's bronze immortal sword to appear. The 10th Wang clan patriarch's pupils constricted. He didn't dodge. A cold gleam appeared in his eyes as he rotated his cultivation base, his aura surging with scintillating brightness. Nascent divinity flames burned his body. He finally drew the sword, he thought. He can use it one more time. I'll make him expend its power. When he slays my clone, my true self can teleport here. A strange gleam appeared in his eyes. Just as Meng Hao seemed to attack with the immortal's sword, it vanished. 10 glowing beams flew out of his bag of holding, time power roiling off them as they sped toward the 10th Wang clan patriarch. They moved with incredible speed, and the 10th Wang clan patriarch was focused on the immortal's sword. Meng Hao took advantage of the critical moment. 10-time sword tips flew forward with shocking speed, carrying over 100,000 years of time power. As they neared the 10th Wang clan patriarch, his face flickered and his body withered rapidly. He retreated instantly at top speed. The faster he moved, the faster the war chariot moved. Meng Hao raced against time, holding back none of immortal shows the Wei's qi. He pushed the war chariot until it rumbled, shooting toward the 10th Wang clan patriarch. The Wang patriarch roared furiously, then his right arm exploded. Self-detonation pushed him away violently, letting him sidestep the attack. Meng Hao's eyes flickered with killing intent. Detonate? One-time sword tip, worth 1 billion spirit stones, exploded into a tempest of time power spiraling toward the 10th Wang clan patriarch as he dodged the war chariot. He roared desolately and exploded his cultivation base with full power within the tempest. When he dissipated it completely, his body was incredibly withered and his face ashen, like skin and bones. He roared furiously. Meng Hao had no time to grieve spirit stones. Defeating the clone depended not just on cultivation base, but on wealth too. He had spirit stones and heaven-defying time treasures. Detonating the 100 wooden time swords was just the beginning. The time sword tips were his trump card. The 10th Wang clan patriarch's clone was being defeated by Meng Hao's spirit stones. Detonate. A second time sword tip exploded. A massive explosion ripped out as a time tempest surged in all directions. The air aged, the sea dried up. In an instant, everything seemed to pass through 10,000 years. The 10th Wang clan patriarch's clone exploded, and a nascent divinity flew out, screaming shrilly. Meng Hao, you're dead, the nascent divinity spun, transforming into an enormous vortex with countless magical symbols flickering within. As it rotated, it turned into a spell formation. A black hole appeared at the spell formation center, a passageway to the unknown. A pressure Meng Hao had never experienced emerged. An aura caused cracking sounds to fill the air around the black hole as multiple fissures appeared. Meng Hao's pupils constricted as he watched the fissures spread into an elliptical shape. It looked like an eye. The spell formation vortex was the iris, the black hole the pupil, the area around it the white of the eye. The fissures were veins of blood. Meng Hao's entire body went cold. Intense pressure made it feel like he would explode. The eye seemed fixed on him. He could sense something inside his body, something that had fused with him, begin to tremble as if being forcefully extracted. He couldn't describe it exactly, but he vaguely sensed it. Finally, he realized it was his foundation, his stable, solid foundation built after 200 years of cultivation. Dao Foundation, he thought, panting. He could almost hear his heart pounding. Everything was completely silent. Only the vortex moved. Meng Hao wanted to struggle, but his body wasn't under his control. He couldn't move, and it felt like his foundation would separate. He could see white mist seeping from his nose and mouth, his eyes and ears, all the pores covering his body. This wasn't life force. This was his Dao Foundation. My Dao is freedom and independence. Meng Hao's eyes went red as his cultivation base suddenly flared. A forced eruption caused 3 successive mouthfuls of blood to pour out. His body wasted away, but he could move again. A sigh came from within the vortex, stabbing into Meng Hao's ears, making him tremble. He coughed up more blood, his face deathly white as he saw a coffin slowly emerge from the vortex. As the coffin appeared, an ancient aura seeped out to fill the entire third ring. All sea demons went motionless. Even sea devils in the second ring trembled. Throughout the Milky Way Sea, all cultivators and life forms went still and quiet. The sea didn't move. The world was still. Only ancientness rolled out to fill everything. This was Dao seeking. The true peak of Dao seeking. Meng Hao knew immediately. This was the 10th Wang clan patriarch's true self. The true self had finally arrived. Meng Hao's scalp went numb, his eyes shot with blood. Without hesitation, he waved his hand, causing 7 of the remaining time sword tips to fly toward the vortex. Detonate, he roared hoarsely. A huge boom rattled as the 7 time sword tips exploded, transforming into a terrifying storm of time power. At the same time, Meng Hao didn't hesitate for even a moment to pull out Han Shan's sword. He hefted the bronze alcohol flagon and took a drink, then spit it out. Sword chi billowed up, and the immortal's sword surged with the last bit of sword chi that he had kept, just in case. A tempest of time ripped into the vortex, and even the coffin began to wither. In the blink of an eye, cracks appeared all over it. However, even as the tempest raged, a withered hand suddenly stretched out from inside the coffin. It began to clench into a fist, and the violent time tempest immediately began to shrink down into the fist. When it was completely inside, the fist clenched tightly. Boom! The tempest vanished, and an old man slowly rose up from within the coffin. He wore burial garments and looked emaciated and frail. His face was a bit flushed, but the flush rapidly disappeared, leaving his face pale white. His eyes were not large, but the feeling of ancientness that emanated out from him was intense to the extreme. He looked at Meng Hao and grinned, but then he noticed the immortal sword that Meng Hao held, and his pupils constricted. The grin caused Meng Hao's hair to stand on end. It was a grin that revealed no teeth whatsoever in his mouth. This man was ancient to the extreme. Even as he smiled, Meng Hao raised up the immortal's sword. Sword chi raged up, filled with a song, shocking to the extreme. However, before the sword could slash down, a tremor ran through him, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Damn it! His face was pale white as he sent immortal chi out of immortal shows the way. The chariot rumbled and shot off into the distance. A gleam of foresight appeared in Meng Hao's eyes, and he panted. He had intentionally not struck down with the sword, purposefully making it seem like the sword was without power. He could tell from his encounter with the 10th Wang clan patriarch's clones that the man was wary of the sword. Since that was the case, Meng Hao refused to believe that he wasn't prepared for it. Everyone knew that the best time to use something was when you could do so along with the element of surprise. This guy is a wily old fox. He's definitely prepared for the sword. If I want to use it, I have to catch him off guard. My cultivation base isn't a match for his. If I want to transcend this tribulation, I have to use my wits. Using the immortal sword at the right time is the key to victory. Meng Hao's face was grim as he thought about how this opponent had crushed the time tempest with a single fist. That left him trembling in fear. This is the peak of Tao seeking, the power of a false immortal. Meng Hao had personally felt the terrifying power of the 10th Wang clan patriarch, and he well understood the vast difference between the two of them. He was also well aware that the white mist that had begun to emanate out of him was the perfection that was part of him. By now, it had been loosened and was being forced out of him. The thought of it was frightening. "There's no need to run," said a hoarse voice from behind Meng Hao. "Your life has been prepared for me. It's your destiny." The ancient voice echoed about in all directions. It seemed as if the wind was rotting, and when Meng Hao heard the voice, his entire body went as cold as ice. He didn't turn to look back, but poured all the power of immortal shows the way into the war chariot. In the blink of an eye, he had shot off into the distance with shocking, incredible speed. "I knew about you way back when you were in Foundation establishment. I've been waiting for many years for the opportunity to reach immortal ascension, and you are that opportunity." The 10th Wang clan patriarch's voice seemed nearer this time. Veins bulged out of Meng Hao's pale face. He could push no more power out of immortal shows the way. Immortal chi tore through his chi passageways as it flowed out into the war chariot. The speed with which he moved was incredible. The seawater down below was no longer that of the third ring. It was black, indicating that he had entered the second ring. This is the Tao of Karma. It is a decision made by destiny. You can't refuse. You think you can refuse the Tao of Karma? Do you think you refuse the choices of destiny? Since you can't refuse, why not just willingly give me your Tao foundation? On the day that I reach immortal ascension, you will be in the underworld of the fourth mountain. Even after you have drunk the tea of old Lady Meng and forgot everything about your past life, you will still have a feeling of glory and honor. This time, it sounded like the 10th Wang clan patriarch was right next to him. 1. Old Lady Meng, or Mengpo, is a figure from Chinese mythology. She works in the underworld and gives people a tea to drink that makes them forget everything about their past lives. The Meng character is the same as Meng Hao's.